miscellaneous, council?
We might as well start.
We can do
See
the
what
other
happens,
stuff,
right?
yeah. All right, let's get the meeting started.
Yep.
All right, was the meeting posted?
Yes.
All right.
Commission will now open a hearing on the allegations of misconduct as charged by Kenneth E. LaValle, the superintendent of police, against J&I Restaurant Incorporated, doing business as Fortunatos, Yusuf Ayub, manager of record, the all-alcoholic beverage restaurant licensee at 44 Palmer Street, for violations of law, local, and state regulations as a result of a Lowell police intervention to quell a disturbance on the licensed premises the morning of February 10, 2012. Number of alleged violations had taken place, beginning with rule number 11 of the Rules and Regulations of the License Commission. Specifically, no licensee for the sale of alcoholic beverages shall permit any disorder, disturbance, indecency, prostitution, lewdness, gambling, or illegality of any kind to take place in or on the licensed premises or any premises connected therewith by an interior communication. The licensee shall be responsible, therefore, whether present or not. Also alleged violation of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 138, Section 34, sale, delivery, or furnishing alcoholic beverages to persons under 21 years of age. Alleged violation of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 138, Section 69, sale or delivery to intoxicated persons. Alleged violation of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 148, Section 34A, assembly use, group building, dangerous condition, and also alleged violations of Alcohol Beverage Control Commission regulations specifically to license and permits and for certain practices prohibited.
All right. With Mr. Ayub? Okay.
How far away is he?
He just called me. He's 2 minutes from the Lowell connectors.
All right, we'll hold that. We'll move on to number 3.
Well,
All right,
we
gotta
can't
have
do
a seat.
anything until your counsel's here.
No.
Mr. Heller,
Yeah, might as well.
you want to just move down to Mr. Heller?
With respect to communications, Commission will now look at the matter of a communication from the Superintendent of Police, Kenneth E. LaValle, a communication that's dated March 22nd, 2012, a letter that identifies the licensee of record, Mr. Jalapeno, Inc., a malt beverage and wine restaurant licensee at 124 Merrimack Street, for allegations of misconduct taking place on March 10th, 2012.
Make a motion that we schedule to bring them in for a hearing, providing adequate notice that we have both options on the table as far as suspension or rollback of hours.
I second the motion.
And
I guess that we could bring them in. Have we scheduled our meetings going forward?
one in the beginning
Well,
of May.
Commissioner Weicker has announced earlier at a previous meeting, he would not be available for the week ending April the 28th, which is normally might be a scheduled Thursday evening for the License Commission. The week before, the 19th, that Thursday, the council chamber is being used by another board. I believe it's the planning board has a scheduled meeting because of the fact that the Monday before the 19th, the 16th of April is a legal holiday. So, and we're scheduled to meet next Thursday, the 12th, at 6:30, a regular meeting. In anticipation of whether maintaining a quorum, we could possibly meet the first week in May, and several dates are available, with the exception of the 31st of May.
Should we May 3rd? All right. So I'll amend your motion to that we schedule them for May 3rd at 6:30 p.m. And then I guess I'll make a motion that we take a recess until council arrives.
Second, all in favor?
Yes. o'clock, he would have been.
I'm sorry?
If we had the meeting at 3 o'clock, he would have been here on time.
We would have been home by now, too, I hope. Now, looking at the month of May, just off the record, you're gonna be out of town on the
Yeah, why,
10th.
what, I know I told you a date, but now I can't remember why I said that. Oh, I know what it is, I think. Let me look.
Well, regardless of that, because we're gonna meet on the 3rd, we won't wanna
Right.
meet the following. But, do you wanna meet the 17th or the 24th? I'll put this on for next week's
Yeah.
meeting.
I think,
I don't know if the
the
17th.
17th is probably better, because isn't that Labor Day, Memorial Day weekend is the, that,
How do you look, how does that feel? Would you think the 17th might be better?
Unless Wally's gonna be here at the end of April.
Well, that's the other thing, you know, I mean,
but it's not like he could have been here but for his birthday, right?
that's what he said, which is kinda,
I know some of the others on the block, he says that, the guy's out there from the time he walks to his car.
you're talking about Wally?
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. I don't know. We're just gonna have to go with the basis that if he shows, he shows, if he doesn't, he
Right.
doesn't, so we just have to schedule.
Right.
Go.
It's one thing, it's the only thing on there.
In fairness, how many times? have we
What's a reasonable period of time to wait for somebody?
I'd give him to 7 o'clock.
What's it, sometimes it is, like Cambridge, traffic.
No, I know.
Make a motion to reconvene.
Yep. Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
All right.
We want to just call them up and ask if they want the complaint read into the record.
Yeah.
We did read the whole complaint into the record, didn't we? You read the whole complaint into the record, didn't you?
I'm sorry?
You read the complaint into the record
I
earlier?
read the outline on the
yeah.
agenda.
Okay. Oh, all right. Okay. Well, we can just call them up and send.
You can ask him if he wants
What's
to
his
waive
last
the
name?
reading. Attorney George Jabor.
Attorney Jabor, are you ready to go?
All right.
Respectfully apologize for my tardiness.
Okay, right at the podium there, sir.
Yeah. Please, for the record, identify yourself.
Yeah, please the board, George Jubor, representing Fortunatos, which, as you know, is a legal name of J&I Restaurant, Inc.
And do you waive the reading, or do you want the complaint read into the record?
No, we'll waive the reading, sir.
I'll turn it over. Law Department.
Thank you. As the commission knows, we are here regarding an incident on the licensed premises of J&I Restaurant Incorporated, DBA Fortunatos, that took place on February 10th, 2012. At that time, at approximately 1:33 a.m., several members of the Lowell Police Department observed a large fight taking place inside the premises.
We just get to the first witness, it's already 7.
I will call, at this point, the first person I'm going to call is Fire Department Deputy Lowell, who will describe kind of some of the fire department issues.
Please approach the podium and,
Want me to sit here, or?
It's gonna be
Yeah,
protracted, so
actually,
you might as well sit
you
there.
might as well, because we're going to have a bunch of people up and,
Yeah, your client can sit with you too if you'd like. Could you say your name for the record, please?
Deputy Chief Phil Lemire.
Deputy Mayor, can you describe I'm just going to cut to the chase. Can you describe the incident that occurred at the Fortunatos restaurant on February 4th, 2012?
My office was apprised that during spot checks of restaurants throughout the city that night, our lieutenant on duty noticed, excuse me, noticed a crowd in the Fortunatos restaurant. Upon further investigation, noted there were what appeared to be a nightclub type scenario. He noticed locked doors, spoke with the owner, and had them unlocked at the time.
Did he also, and then he prepared a report
Yes.
to this effect. And in the report, did he mention an issue about a crowd manager?
Also, the crowd manager issue was brought to the attention of the owner or proprietor at the time, who failed to be able to supply the appropriate document showing that the crowd manager issue was being addressed.
Okay. Now, I apologize to the commission. I'm also going to call Deputy Chief Lemire back for purposes of some appeals issues regarding these fire department issues, but right now, I'd like to have Lieutenant Carvalho.
But just for the record, this was on February 4th that there was a spot check.
Yes.
So approximately a week before the incident that
Correct.
is subject to this hearing. And was that notice of violation given to the manager of the establishment known as Fortunatos?
At that time, it was not. It was a verbal order to not lock the door anytime the establishment was open to patrons, and that he should follow the crowd manager at all times. He did not issue a written violation at that time because there was compliance with the locked door. And as far as the crowd manager issue, I'm unsure of exactly what the scenario was there.
Okay, and there was there's a notice of violation that's dated February 10th, 2012, that addresses, it's signed by Lieutenant Ryder, and it addresses the incidents on February 4th, 2012. And this notice of violation, was that given before or after this incident with the large fight at Fortunato's?
It was after that.
Okay. So they were given a verbal warning prior to the incident, but they weren't giving a written warning till after the incident?
Correct. I had the written notification in my office
Yes.
from that investigation or that the spot check that night.
Okay.
That's why I had awareness of it.
Okay.
And Deputy Chief, I can tell you that I'm aware that Lieutenant Ryder was downtown on February 4th, because I actually saw him that night and spoke with him, so I can verify that he was on Palmer Street. All right, let's,
Does he have any questions for me?
When you say you yourself did not speak to anybody in the Fourth, is that right?
That's correct.
And who did from your department, sir?
Lieutenant Christopher Ryder.
And have you spoken to him about what he did on the Fourth after this incident occurred on the 10th?
I don't understand the question.
Well, did you speak to him before the 10th about the spot check that he had made on the 4th at Fortunato's?
Verbally over the phone, we spoke concerning all of his investigations that night, not just that particular one.
When specifically did you speak to him, sir, before the 10th?
Concerning,
can I stop you for a second? Attorney, could you, Jabor, could you please press the green, or the little pad in front of your microphone? I guess it's not being picked up on the record is what our tech guy just
Okay.
gave us.
Thank you. Sir, just to get back on the records, before the 10th, you had spoken to your lieutenant, and forgive me because I've forgotten his name. His name again, sir?
Ryder.
Is he here, sir?
No.
Okay. And what did he tell you before the 10th?
Working from memory, basically he reviewed with me the issues he found on the night that he performed the inspections, and did inform me that at the Fortunato's restaurant, he found the locked doors and the issue with the crowd manager, but did not issue a written violation at that time.
Did anybody make a report of this on a computer, a written report of any sorts?
No.
To memorialize what had happened?
Actually, there might be a written report in his handwriting only
When was that generated, sir?
that night.
And so, has that been provided to anybody in the city, or been given to my client, or anything like that, sir?
It hasn't been asked for.
Hasn't been asked for? Okay. Do you have it in your possession tonight?
I do not.
Okay. When you say Lieutenant spoke to the owner, did he speak to the gentleman that's seated beside me, do you know? Because he is the owner. I just want to know if he was made aware of this, and what was his reaction? Did he cooperate? Did he say, no, forget it, I'm not going to do anything? Did he say, right away, I'll take care of the problem? I just want to know if anybody spoke to my client, who's now seated beside me. I just want to know what your understanding or knowledge of that is, sir.
Actually, I can't answer that question. I don't know.
And so, as far as you know, my client didn't refuse to comply with any orders, because as far as you know, he was never made aware of any problems with locking doors before the 10th. Is that right, sir?
Well, no, that's not exactly right. I'm sure that whoever was responsible for the party or the restaurant at that time was the responsible person who my lieutenant spoke to. Whether it was this gentleman or his manager, I don't have that specific knowledge.
But you testified a moment ago, sir, you claimed that the owner was spoken to. And I just want to distinguish between an employee and an owner, and I think you can agree with me, there's a big distinction, is there not, sir, in your mind?
No, there isn't really in my mind. It's the responsible person at the bar or nightclub at the time. So to me, in my mind, it doesn't matter if it was the owner or his manager. because the owner is ultimately responsible for the
So
care
you-
of the property.
as you stand here tonight, you have no evidence to show that my client was ever made aware of what had gone on the February 4th?
I can't
It's just
say...
yes or no, so you have
Yeah, no. Lieutenant Ryder would be the person to verify that. He's not here now.
And does the city have a policy of ensuring that the owner receives either a written warning or a verbal warning, or somebody makes sure the person that owns the establishment is made aware of any potential problems in a licensed establishment or that may present a problem? Is there any policy procedure in the fire department whereby you make the owner aware, either by sending him a friendly reminder or calling somebody to follow up and make sure the owner is aware of these problems, sir?
No, there is not.
Thank you, sir.
Specifically.
I'm sorry.
As I said earlier, I'm going to have the deputy chief step down for just a moment.
Sure.
And call Lieutenant Carvalho to the stand.
Sure.
Lieutenant Cavallo, Lowell Fire Department.
Lieutenant Carvalho, did you have at any time around February 10th the opportunity to go to the Fortunato's establishment?
The day after the incident.
And can you describe what the reason for your going to the Fortunato's establishment that day?
Just to verify crowd management and the egresses, and anything else that may have been a fire code violation.
And when you went to the Fortunato's establishment on February 11th, is that correct?
It was the 10th.
It was
the
the
day
10th,
after.
right, because it was at 1:30.
It was the morning after the
The
incident.
morning after the incident. So you went to Fortunato's, that's correct?
Correct.
Did you meet anyone who was claimed to be the owner?
I met the owner.
So Mr. Abud, who is here today, is the person you met there?
Yes, sir.
And can you describe what you found at Fortunato's that morning?
I found a locked egress door.
Okay.
I asked for crowd manager documentation, which was not on site at
Okay.
the time.
I've provided Attorney Jabor and the commission with a stack of photos. These photos I will have authenticated by they already have it, it's on them. They already have it. It's already, the photos would be authenticated by the officer who took them, but I did want to just check some information with Lieutenant Carvalho. Lieutenant Carvalho, I'm showing you a photograph that appears to show a padlock on a door. It's the top photograph of the stack that I provided to both the commission and to Attorney Jabor. Do you recognize that?
Yes,
And can you tell me what that's a photograph of?
it's the locked door leading to Palmer Street.
And is this the door that you found locked on the morning of February 10th?
Yes, sir.
Now,
No, that's not
we've described that door as an egress. Is that a fair description?
Correct.
And what about this door would you characterize it as being an egress?
There's an exit sign, exit light, and a pull station right next to the door, sir.
So by pull station, you like
A fire alarm pull station, yes.
and those are typically found next to egresses.
Correct, within 6 feet.
And was there anything else that you noticed about this door when you saw it that morning of the 10th?
Other than the, some type of supply things on the other side of it.
I'm sorry,
And
I can't hear what he's saying.
Oh. Myself or, sir?
I'm sorry, I apologize. I don't know if I'm going deaf or something, but
Sure, I'll speak a little louder and more clearly. You're welcome.
Was there anything else that you noticed about this egress when you were there on the 10th?
It was locked when I was there on the 10th,
And was
with
there-
that padlock.
Was there anything else blocking it?
There were, I don't know what it was, there was some kind of stands on the other side of the door, which may have prohibited it from opening.
If I turn to the second photograph in the stack, which appears to show some painted cinder block and wood poles that have been knocked over, do you recognize those?
They were in front of the door,
So they were
standing up in front of the door.
blocking the egress.
Correct, sir.
Now, you testified that you spoke to the owner, again, Mr. Aboud, I'm sorry, Mr. Ayub, about crowd manager documentation?
Correct. I asked him to produce his crowd manager documentation from the night prior.
And did he produce any documentation?
No, there wasn't any on site.
Did he indicate who was the crowd manager that evening?
He said it was himself.
Okay, and when he indicated that he was the crowd manager, did you ask him whether or not he had been there that entire night?
Yes, and he said at the time of the incident, he went home because he was tired.
Okay, so he indicated that even though he was the crowd manager that night, he actually left the premises before closing?
Correct.
Lieutenant Cavallo, did you issue a notice of violation?
Yes, sir, I did.
And is this a copy of the notice of violation?
You can hang on to that one if you want. We've got extras.
Is this a copy of the notice?
Yes, sir.
And just for the record, it says on February 9th, 2012, you issued this notice of violation. Would that date be incorrect?
It may be, sir.
Okay, and the correct date should be?
The 10th.
The 10th, okay. Just for the, I just want to clarify
Okay.
for the record.
And let me just clarify, when you went there on the 10th, you went there approximately what time in the morning?
Oof, I'd say 10 in the morning, 11 maybe.
And at that time, those posts that were depicted in the second picture, were they upright or were they already down?
They were, I remember seeing one upright.
Okay. And let me just for the record, you didn't take these photos, did you?
No, sir, I did not.
Okay.
Also, Lieutenant Carvalho, are you aware of the capacity for the first floor at the Fortunato's restaurant?
I believe it's 108.
Okay, and that's, as far as you know, the legal capacity for that floor?
Correct.
Okay. I have nothing further for Lieutenant Carvalho at this
I
point.
just have a couple, sir.
Sure.
If I may, Lieutenant, is it Cavallo?
Yes, sir.
I just don't want to get you.
Okay, yep.
Sir, did you, were you aware of the fact that, that this is the same door? Let me show you this picture. Is that the door with the lock not on the door?
No, sir, that's not the door.
It's not the door?
No, sir, that's a rear door, is what it looks like to me.
Okay, can I see the picture where you claim is up the lock?
It's the top picture of the stack that I gave you when you got here.
If this would help.
Do you know how many means of egress are in this establishment, sir?
3.
3. Okay. Do you know specifically where they're located?
Yes, on the front towards Middle and Palmer Street, the rear of the building leading to an alleyway, and the locked one which was on Palmer Street.
And you're aware that my client has the proper certificates for crowd management control?
Correct, sir, I am. He made me aware of that, but he was not on site, nor did he produce it according to the law at that time, and is supposed to stay on site for up to a year.
Were you aware whether or not there was a need that whether or not he was aware that there would be a need for a crowd control manager on the night of the incident?
I believe he did know.
How did you know that, sir?
He took the course and he said, I will produce it to you. He also told me he would bring me the records that he filled out the paperwork by day's end on the 10th, and that was not produced.
Maybe you misunderstood my question, and I apologize. I may not have phrased it clear enough. When you spoke to him, you were doing an investigation, were you not, about this very disturbing incident that occurred at his establishment. Is that right, sir?
Excuse me, you have to rephrase it. What did you say?
I said, when you spoke to him, you were aware of this unfortunate incident that had occurred the night before. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Could you speak a little louder? I really can't understand or hear
I
you.
apologize. I have the same problem.
Okay.
Okay, let me try to do
Must
the
be my
best I
hearing.
can. So you've answered the question in the affirmative. You were aware that an unfortunate incident happened the night before. Is that right, sir?
Correct, sir.
And who asked you to go to the establishment to, I assume you're doing an investigation, is that right?
Yes, my fire chief.
And what was the purpose of you going there, sir?
The purpose was to ask for crowd control
Anything-
documentation and to visually get an inspection of the property.
And do you know under what circumstances that you need a crowd control manager on the premises?
It's clearly listed, yes.
And
A
what?
nightclub atmosphere.
Okay, and if there's not a nightclub atmosphere, you don't need a crowd control measure, is that right?
In a restaurant atmosphere, no, you don't.
Okay. Were you aware whether or not my client was aware there was going to be a nightclub atmosphere that night? Did you ask him, why did you let this happen? I assume at that point you're doing an investigation.
Well,
Did you say to him, let me just finish my question, sir, I apologize. If you don't understand the question, ask me to rephrase it. When you were doing this investigation at the request of your chief, you were trying to get all the facts as accurate as you can, is that right, sir?
yes, sir.
And the purpose was to get the facts so you can write up any and all violations that you were able to find, is that right, sir?
No, not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Okay, but in any event, sir, did you ask my client, for example, how were you able, why were you not on site if you knew there was going to be a nightclub atmosphere? Did you ask him that question? Yes
No, I
or
did
no?
not. I asked him for his crowd manager documentation.
I understand you
And
say
it does not just have to be for that night, it has to be for any night he's open as a nightclub. So he should have had that documentation on site.
But what if he wasn't going to be opening for a nightclub that night?
Doesn't matter, he still has to produce the documentation for prior nights.
Other than producing the documentation, so at some point did he produce the documentation?
I think 2 weeks later, but I deemed it as inaccurate since he did check off parts that said the egress doors were all unlocked.
But sir, he did produce the documentation.
I would say roughly 2 weeks later.
Do you know why it took 2 weeks?
No, because it's supposed to be on site.
Okay, did he bring it to you, or did you go to him?
He had it at a follow-up inspection that we had conducted.
Okay, and he produced appropriate documentation at that time?
I did not ask for them, but yes, he did.
He did? You didn't ask him for it?
Not at that time, no, I didn't.
Okay. But in any event, sir, were you aware that he had the appropriate documentation, but you just didn't have it at the time you went there the next day after this
Well,
unfolded?
the law states that he has to have it there.
I appreciate your volunteering that, sir, but if you could just answer my question.
What's your question again?
My question, sir, is, first of all, did he have the proper documentation?
When?
When you went up for a follow-up inspection?
The third time we asked? He did have
I
it.
thought it was the second time, sir.
No, Lieutenant Ryder also asked for it.
Sir, I'm just asking about you.
I know.
All right, let's just set some ground rules here. You're a professional, we're a professional, everyone in here is a professional individual. We can have a little decorum and have a reasonable conversation back and forth.
Okay, I'd be glad to.
Okay.
Sir, did he remove all the violations that you cited him for?
He removed the lock from the door on
Okay.
the second visit that I made to this.
Okay, when was the second visit?
I don't remember the exact date.
Do you have any report you made, sir?
I do.
Where is it?
It's at the fire station on file.
Okay, has that been produced to, as part of this
Nobody has asked
complaint
for it.
process? It never been produced?
Nobody has asked for that information.
Well, in any event, when was the report generated, sir?
The day of my visit,
Which was February 10th?
not the second visit, sir. Which report?
Well, how many reports do you have, sir?
I fill out a report for all of my visits.
So you should have at least 3 reports.
I've been there twice.
Sorry?
I've been there twice.
Okay. When you mentioned a moment ago the third time, what were you referring to?
The third time that a fire department official was there.
Okay, but that wasn't you.
No, sir.
And what was the fire department official there for the third time?
Lieutenant Ryder was there the first time. I was there the second and third time
Okay, so what would you do with the third time, sir?
to follow up that the door had been properly fixed.
And had it been?
Yes. Half of it
What else-
half of the door had been fixed.
Okay. What else did you do at the third visit, sir?
That was all I did.
Did you write
And he gave me his crowd manager information.
And that was within 2 weeks of the incident?
Correct.
Did you ask him to produce it any time sooner than that, sir?
No, I did not.
So was this a planned meeting between you and him?
It was not between myself and him. The building department and the health department were also present.
I understand, sir, but if I could just focus on,
Well, I wasn't asked from your client to go. I was asked from the building department to attend.
so this meeting was planned, in other words?
Not by myself. You asked if I planned the meeting.
Okay, I apologize, I didn't mean to be that specific.
Well, I thought we were getting specifics.
I'm sorry?
I thought we were getting specific, so I just wanted to make that
Okay,
clear.
I'd appreciate it if we could just tone it down a little bit. I'm
Okay,
just trying to go on a fact-finding mission here and not be debating this with you, because it's a
Okay.
very serious matter. The third incident was third meeting rather, was a scheduled meeting, was it not?
Correct.
Okay, and do you know who scheduled it?
No, I do not.
And at that third meeting, what was the purpose of that third meeting, at least as far as from the,
For me to follow up on the
if I
door,
could finish my question, from the fire department's perspective?
to follow up on the locked egress. And I asked, we were gonna, obviously, we were gonna discuss the crowd manager information again.
Okay, and he produced
Yes,
whatever
sir.
documentation, is that
Whatever
right?
documentation he had.
Okay. Now, who else was at that meeting, sir?
I'm going to object to this line of question. We're talking about a meeting that occurred a week after the incident for which we're here. I don't see how that's relevant in any way. I mean, quite frankly, I just don't see that it's relevant.
I'm intrigued. Please continue, but let's get to the point.
Okay, I'll try to, my bad for being late, so I'm gonna try to get to the point. Who was at this meeting, the third meeting?
I think Mark Robideau from the building department and I forget the woman's name from the health department.
Okay, do you know why,
Laurie Purcell is her name.
sorry?
Laurie Purcell.
And do you know why the three of you were there?
Together, or what their purpose was, or mine.
Well, if you know what their purpose was, and then you've obviously told us what your purpose was.
I don't know what their purpose was. We typically try to do inspections together,
Okay, so it was an inspection after the incident, is that right?
or a meeting, or whatever.
Okay. Briefly, sir, who was there for the second meeting?
Can I just, I'm going to try and bring this back onto the table. Is there any dispute right now that Mr. Ayub, the license holder and manager of record, was not on the premises, that's from sometime late in the evening of the 9th into the morning of the 10th when this incident occurred?
He was on the premises at some point, but he wasn't there when this incident occurred.
Okay.
Because when he was there was no reason for him to believe that there was going to be a need for a crowd control manager. That's what I'm trying to say to you.
Okay, well, we can have him testify to that. Let me just ask, is there any dispute that the crowd control documents were not produced, or the crowd control manager documents were not produced on the morning of the 10th? Is there any dispute that the crowd control manager documents were not produced on the morning of the 10th when Lieutenant Carvalho asked for them?
When they called me at 10 o'clock in the morning, I had them, but what's going on, I was confused, I don't know what's going on. So I told them, I want to show it to my lawyer, speak with my lawyer before I give it to you.
I wasn't his lawyer at
He
the
was
time.
not my lawyer at that time.
But
So the records weren't on site.
Was that?
The records weren't on site.
They were in the basement.
they were on,
Can you turn his
let
microphone?
me just repeat what he's saying.
That's on.
The records were on site.
But they were
Okay,
not,
but
but
he
they
just
were
said-
not produced?
But he just said that it was at 10 a.m. and he didn't have them, he had them with him, not, so,
No, they were in the basement, he said. And because he was
I
confused.
told him I don't have it because I want to speak with my lawyer first, because I don't know what's going on. I don't know what, anything happened at the incident
Okay.
till they
so the
called me
fire
10 o'clock.
department demanded records from you and you said you're gonna contact your lawyer first?
I told him I'll bring it to you afternoon. Then I tried to contact a lawyer to see what my status. Okay.
And
If I may.
is there any dispute as to whether or not the door exiting onto Palmer Street was locked that evening?
But the explanation for the locked door is that at the end of the evening, the door gets locked, but it's always open when the establishment is in operation. That's the rule he has set down for his establishment.
So,
And there were three,
so then we have a dispute, so you're telling me that we have a dispute of fact as to whether or not that door was locked during the time of the incident?
well, we have no way of knowing unless.
Well, I'm sure
Okay.
the police are gonna testify.
Yeah,
All right.
if I could just be, Lieutenant Carvalho is not attempting to suggest it was locked at the time of the incident.
You know,
That's
I'm
a
just
whole
trying
other-
to get to the,
Yes.
get right to the meat of the allegations.
Right.
Okay.
I don't have any further questions.
I've got nothing else, and I apologize for interrupting. If you have anything else you want to bring either side?
No, thank you.
No, I think,
All right. Thank you, Lieutenant Carvalho.
Thank you.
as I said, I'm just going to call back to Deputy Lemire for a very brief issue. You're up again, sorry. Again, I apologize for calling you up again, but
Could you just introduce yourself for the record again?
Deputy Chief Phil Lemire, Lowell Fire Department.
Thank you.
And Are you familiar with the fact that there were violation orders issued to the Fortunatos as a result of violations that were noted by the fire department?
Yes.
And did Fortunatos or their owner attempt to appeal these violations?
Objection, I don't know what the relevance if you appeal a violation on the basis of sound legal ground.
Okay.
Would
We'll
be-
take a day, Benny, though.
You can go ahead and answer.
Yes.
And can you just tell the commission what the outcome of that appeal was?
The appeal was to the State Fire Marshal's office. The appeal was denied.
And so as far as you know, there's been no further appeals of these?
That's correct.
Okay, that's all
I just have a few questions. Are you aware, sir, that the fire marshal has no jurisdiction whatsoever over these matters? You just say yes or no, because it was appealed based on he has no jurisdiction over the issues that you find my client for.
I am not.
You do not know whether he does or not?
That's correct.
Okay. Would it surprise you if I told you I had a conversation and they denied it because they have no jurisdiction over these violations you wrote?
No, not necessarily.
You just don't know one way or another? Is that
I
true?
wouldn't be surprised.
Be surprised of what, that he didn't have jurisdiction over them?
Okay, he doesn't know, so that's fine. All right. Yep, nothing further.
Yeah, I have nothing
Have any
further for-
questions?
What's it?
Thank you.
Now, just very briefly, I'm going to call the building commissioner, Robert Marsilia.
Could you introduce yourself for the record?
Robert Marsilia, Building Commissioner for the City of Lowell.
I'm sorry, I don't know how to spell his last name.
Could you spell your last name, please?
Marsilia.
Thank you, sir.
At some point in time, did you become aware of an incident that occurred on February 10th at Fortunatos?
I did.
At some point in time, did the Inspectional Services Department make an inspection of Fortunatos?
They did.
And what did they find?
They found that the primary thing that they found was that the building had been used as a nightclub. A certificate of inspection that we had on file was for restaurant use. It was the first time that we were aware that it was being used for something other than a restaurant, in this case, a nightclub. At that point, we issued a violation notice indicating that the code violation was related to the nightclub use and that they were not in compliance with the egress requirements for a nightclub.
And when you say that it was being used as a nightclub, you're not just pulling that out of thin air. There's some guidelines for what a nightclub use is that correct?
Yeah, there's actually a section, it's 303.11, definition for nightclub as part of the state building code. And this met that requirement.
And that was based on Inspectional Services observation of the premises shortly after the incident on the 10th?
That and in getting a copy of the police report where they described what happened during the operation.
And so based on the information you gleaned from the police report and from the on-site, the Inspectional Services determined that it was being used as a nightclub.
Correct.
Is that correct? And it did not have a certificate of inspection for a nightclub, is that correct?
Correct.
It had a certificate of inspection for a restaurant.
Correct.
And the egress to the building was not compliant for a nightclub egress, is that correct?
Also correct.
And in fact, it wasn't compliant for a restaurant either, was it?
No, I think it was slightly narrow for even a nightclub use.
Or even a restaurant?
For restaurant use, yes.
Has the owner of the business or the landlord taken any steps to bring the building into compliance for a nightclub use that you're aware of?
No.
Can
we just cut back to the 10th? Mr. Marsilia, can you please, just for the record, tell us what the definition is of a nightclub and how this met it?
Yes, I quote, nightclub, again, this is from the state building code. An occupancy generally characterized by a combination of any of the following: no theatrical stage accessories other than raised platform, low lighting levels, entertainment by a live band or recorded music, generating above normal sound levels, later than average operating hours, tables and seating arranged or positioned so as to create ill-defined aisles, a specific area designated for dancing, service facilities for alcoholic beverages with limited food services, and a high occupant load density.
Thank you. And what are the egress requirements for a nightclub?
Well, the main difference is that, and I'll quote the section again. Section 1005, egress with and related. Minimum required egress width. The means of egress shall not be less than the total occupant load served by the means of egress multiplied by 0.3 inch per occupant. For stairways, 0.2 inch per occupant for egress components, including doors. However, section 1008.1.1, size of door requires 36-inch wide door. Section 1028.2 requires a minimum width of all egress elements for A2 nightclubs to be minimum of 72 inches. That's specific to the Mass State front-end amendments to the International Building Code, which the state has adopted.
Okay. Is there a, I'm sorry, did I miss, is there a number of means of egress that are listed, or
What do you mean?
how many means of egress do you
This is
have
the
on a
main means of
nightclub?
egress is required to be 72 inches.
Okay.
And this is a direct result, and this came out after the Station nightclub fire a few years ago, that the state adopted this requirement.
I'll turn them back over to you.
I have no further questions for the building commissioner at this point.
Thank you. Sir, who is Edward Peter?
And could you use your microphone a
Sure.
little bit? You can pull it towards you if that would help.
Edward Peter,
I believe he's the fire chief?
and you're Robert Mazzelia, Building Commissioner?
That's correct.
And I can't make out his name, but in any event, sir, could you identify this as your signature?
Yes, that's my signature.
In that document I just showed you, what is that, sir?
That's the certificate of inspection for Fortunato's.
And it bears your signature, does it not, sir?
It does. It calls it out as an A2 restaurant.
So you mentioned nightclub there somewhere?
It says banquet hall, nightclub, bar, Fortunato's Italian Restaurant.
Okay, and do you know how, when that inspection was made, sir?
Well, it's an annual certificate. This was valid through December 31st of this past year.
Okay, and so somebody has to physically go out there and inspect the premises, do they not? Right?
Yes,
And the purpose of the inspection is to bring to the attention of the owner any fire code violations?
purpose of the inspection is multiple. It's to make sure that it's compliant with this applicable codes.
All right, so one of the purposes is to make sure that it complies with the building code.
Yes,
And so as far as your signature on that document, the building as of that last inspection, and by the way, did you, obviously this is a very important matter, did you go back and check your inspection records of this premises, the inspection at least done by your department, sir?
did I go back and check the records for
Fortunato's,
what? Previous violations?
previous violations, what the last time it was inspected, for example? Has it, first of all, did you do any of that? Did you go back and look in your records, sir, as a result of this incident?
That we did, yes.
You did, okay. Did you see any violations at all for this premises?
I don't recall, no. I don't think we did.
So there was no violations at all, is that right, sir?
We didn't have any outstanding violations.
Okay, and there's never been any violations. In fact, I assumed you were looking for violations when this incident occurred, is that right, sir?
We were looking for compliance with the code.
Okay, but were you looking to see if this building has ever been warned before, if there are any violations before, or things of that nature? I'm just trying to find out, because obviously, a reasonable person would assume that you would want to go back and look at the history of the premises and see if there are any violations.
That's what we do when we do our annual inspections.
Okay,
That's
so as far as you know, sir, this place has always been building code compliant up until this incident that occurred on February 10, 2012. Is that right, sir?
correct. Yes,
Now, if the premises is used as a restaurant, sir, was it code compliant?
yes,
Okay. So you wrote up the building owner, is that right, sir? Because the front door was not 72 inches, because you wrote that violation on the assumption that my client was using the place as a quote-unquote nightclub. Is that right, sir?
based on the information provided by the police, yes.
But if he wasn't going to be using the place for a nightclub, then he was code compliant. Is that right, sir?
Yes,
Were you aware, other than this incident that occurred on February 10th of 2012, whether or not my client that's sitting beside me ever used the premises as a nightclub?
I was not aware of that, no.
And is there any idea why the word nightclub appears in that latest inspection certificate issued with the signatures of your signature, the fire department's signature? By the way, there's a third signature over there I can't make out. Do you know whose signature that is, sir?
The third signature, yes, that's Sean Shanahan, he's the local building inspector.
And it also contains your signature, is that right, sir?
Yes.
Does that mean you went out and inspected the place?
No, would you like me to answer the question you asked me?
Which question do you want to answer, sir?
You asked me why this has restaurant, banquet hall, nightclub.
No, I want to know, does it have it?
It does, yes.
Okay. And you signed off on that, is that right, sir?
Yes.
I'll
If I
ask
can-
why.
Yeah, why? Why does it say that? Why does it say restaurant?
This is a standard form, and it's been like this for years. And what we issued was for, just as the license committee issues restaurant and nightclub licenses for a liquor establishment, when we go out, if it's a restaurant, we inspect it as a restaurant. If it's a nightclub, we inspect it as a nightclub. This is a catch-all to include
So
both.
my question, I guess, is, so the use group is A2, which includes a restaurant, banquet hall, nightclub, bar.
Yes.
And then on the top where it says issue to Fortunato's Italian Restaurant.
Correct.
Comma, restaurant, that's your designation that this is considered a restaurant.
That's correct.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead.
Okay, so, sir, he was code compliant, but if he was going to be using it as a restaurant, I just want to establish that for the record.
Yes.
Okay. Can I see that back, sir? Now, sir, getting back to my question, and I apologize for asking it a second time, the owner of the premises, do you know who that is, sir?
This is the first time I've seen him. I've spoken to him on the phone.
You spoke to him on the phone. And did he, in fact, come down and fix these violations within a week of the violation notice?
To the best of my knowledge, he's repaired the violations except for the required minimum width for nightclub use.
Which violation did he not correct, sir?
The required width for nightclub, 72 inches,
How many inches is it now?
3 feet.
Okay. And is there any reason why he hasn't gone to 72 inches?
I don't know. You'd have to ask your client.
Well, my client
I
is not the owner.
identified the violation and that the requirement for use is I identified the violation, my group identified the violation related to the use as a nightclub that required it be a 72-inch main egress. To this date, nothing has been done to resolve that.
Okay. Now, other than that, sir, everything else has been corrected and corrected quite quickly. Is that right, sir?
It's been corrected, yes.
How soon after the violation notice were they corrected, sir?
I'm not sure. I don't have the dates for each item. We'd gone back at least twice since that violation notice was issued
For what purpose?
to re-inspect. First time it failed, not all of the items were resolved.
And who are you dealing with, the owner or my client?
Both. Inspectors dealt with both.
Okay. At some point after the second inspection, things were taken care of. Is that right, sir?
Yes, with the exception of the 72-inch egress.
Which he doesn't need if he's not going to use it as a nightclub.
That's correct.
Thank you, sir.
I have nothing further.
No questions.
No questions.
I just wanted to mention at this point, given that this may be a lengthy issue, the building commissioner was also here on the communication regarding the certificate of inspection, the third item that was on the agenda. I don't want to take things out of order, but I do want to release witnesses if that's possible, so
I think he's testified to pretty much everything that's in here.
that was my belief as well. I just wanted to make sure before I released witnesses that the commission was okay with that.
Yeah.
All right.
For the sake of expediency, can we just have the first officer on scene?
That's who's next. If we could call Officer Bowler, please.
What's his name, sorry?
He'll introduce himself on the record. And Officer Bowler, can you please state your name for the record and spell it for council?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Nathan Bowler. It's Bowler.
I'm just going to cut to the chase. When you arrived on the scene, what was the, well, let me ask, what was the lighting condition when you arrived at Fortunato's?
Within the club?
Within the, I'm going to hold off using the term, within the premises?
My initial observations, it was quite dark. The lights started coming on as I began to run into the business.
Okay. And was it set up for a dance floor or a DJ?
A dance floor, and a DJ as well.
And did you see any food being served?
Food? No, no, Commissioner.
Okay.
I just had a question. In your report that you submitted, you refer to Fortunato's restaurant as Club 44.
Yes.
And how did you arrive at the name Club 44?
That was given to me by a number of patrons that I spoke to that night.
Okay. And the next question that I had for you is, could you estimate, you attended the police academy, correct?
Yes.
And you were trained on numerous things, including assessing crowds?
Yes.
And could you estimate the number of people that were in the establishment upon your arrival?
Myself and my partner, as the Commissioner are aware, were the first ones on scene. At that time, I estimate there were certainly over 200 persons. As we were running into the business, people, to the extent that they were able to, were running out of the business. So when I initially made my observations, it was certainly in excess of 200 people.
And how many exits were they exiting from?
Just the one.
And
And again, in your report, you said that there were individuals, or could you, I'll strike that. Could you describe the age range of individuals that were in the establishment to the best of your ability?
Yes. I can both describe the persons that I observed as well as the persons that were eventually placed into custody. The persons that I observed, I believe to be persons that I believe to be definitely under the age of 21. I know for a fact that 2 of them were under 21. Those persons were eventually placed into custody by myself, one of which was the person that I was involved in a physical altercation with in the middle of the dance floor who was known to be 18 years old. There was also persons there that certainly appeared to be over 21, and there were persons placed into custody that were, at least by myself, at least 35 years old.
And when you arrived at the scene, was the owner of the premises there?
No.
Okay. And who identified them as in charge of the premises?
After some semblance of order had been established, I spoke with a male who identified himself as being an employee of the owner. He refused to identify himself as being affiliated with that business, said he was not a manager, but did identify himself by name and state that he was employed by the owner.
Okay. Okay, and you had a conversation with him?
Yes.
And what did that conversation entail?
Well, initially, once we identified him as potentially a person who was either running the business or at least nominally in charge of the business that evening, we asked him to contact the known owner of the business. He attempted to do that a number of times. In excess of 20 times in my presence, he attempted to call the owner on the cell phone. Failed to get an answer the first 21 or 22 times. He got an answer eventually. He spoke with a female, stated that he had a wrong number for the owner. Now, this is a gentleman who identified himself as a longtime employee of the owner. Stated that he, when he hung up the phone with that young lady, he told me that he believed the young lady he spoke to was the owner's wife. He recognized her voice, and stated that he was not going to be able to contact the owner, obviously, that evening.
I'm going to ask, going back to the issue for the identification as Club 44, have you patrolled the downtown in the past?
Yes.
And have you ever seen any signs or chalkboard sandwich boards out that identified the location as Club 44?
No, not prior to this time, although I had just come back from a recent injury.
And when you arrived on the scene, you described the age of the individuals. Could you describe their intoxication levels?
The persons that I was able to view, including those persons that I believe to be well under the age of 21, were quite obviously intoxicated. Both by my experience and training in the police academy, I recognized that they were intoxicated. They had glassy eyes, bloodshot eyes. They spoke, when they spoke, with heavily slurred speech. Their movements were jerky. They often had trouble standing. a number of signs that I'm sure the commissioners are aware of, as well as their extremely irrational, violent, and out-of-control behavior in dealing with the police. Those would be the persons that are, I believe, to be under the age of 21, including those 2 persons that were placed in custody that were in fact under 21, and as well as the people that I observed to be over 21.
Turn it over to the law department.
Did you observe the, and I'll show you the photograph. When you arrived, when you were in the location that evening, did you observe this door?
Yes.
And what was it locked at the time?
At the time that I had the occasion to view this door, it was in this condition, which would be broken open.
Are you aware of a rear egress to the building?
Yes.
At the time you entered the building, was that rear egress open for patrons to use?
No.
And why was it not open?
The rear egress was in the far rear of the business. I couldn't even see the egress. It's accessed through a very narrow hallway. That hallway was blocked entirely by a wooden structure that was nominally the DJ booth that they were using for the DJ booth. Not only was the DJ booth set up in front of that hallway, completely restricting access to that hallway, but in addition, there were several persons, I assume they were either the DJ or his staff, that were hiding behind that barricade and throwing glass bottles over it towards us.
And I'm just going to show you the last photograph in the packet. This kind of striped wooden structure that's leaning kind of catty-cornered up against the railing there. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
Is that the wooden barrier that was placed across this? Let me rephrase the question. Is this the hallway leading to the rear exit?
Yes.
And in the upper right-hand corner of this photograph, there's a lighted exit sign. Is that the rear exit to the house?
Yes.
And is that the structure that was placed across this hallway blocking access to the rear exit?
Well, this was across the hallway, but that was secondary to the structure in the bottom left-hand corner of this photograph, which was the DJ structure that I just described, which was also in front of the hallway.
Okay, so there's a structure here on the left, and that structure was in front of this barricade, effectively blocking access to the rear.
Yes, it was pushed to the rear of where this photograph was taken. It was blocking this egress, as this barricade was also down this way.
Just clarify. In your opinion, was access to that means of egress blocked?
It could not be used, and in fact, it wasn't being used by any of the 200 persons attempting to flee.
Is there anyone else?
Yep. Just very quickly, did you observe any open containers of alcohol on the premises?
Yes.
Can you describe them, please?
Well, firstly, I observed a number of glass beer bottles, but all the glass beer bottles I saw were either being used as clubs in people's hands or flying through the air above the crowd. Also, I observed, I'd say approximately 4 bottles that I personally observed would be open champagne bottles sitting on. There was a low serving table towards the kitchen area, as well as a low table in the back that apparently was being used as a birthday party because it had a birthday cake on it. There were several bottles in each of those structures that were open and contained champagne.
Okay. I have no further questions.
May I?
Oh, I'm sorry. I did have one more. Did you have a chance to attempt to observe the liquor license of the establishment?
Yes.
And could you describe it?
Again, once order was restored somewhat, myself and Sergeant Obrega had an opportunity to speak with that manager, as I testified to a moment ago. During that conversation, we demanded he produce the liquor license on site. He led us to an area that was in a narrow rear hallway that I believe to be a exclusively staff area. Pointed to what appeared to be a liquor license that was approximately 12 feet off the floor, and we actually had to climb up on a high bar stool to access that liquor license.
Okay, thanks. I have no other further questions at this time.
Thank you, sir. It's fair to say that there was pandemonium after the police arrived, is that right, sir?
Attorney Jabbour, could you just bring that microphone? You can slide it out towards you, I guess.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, sorry. It was pandemonium when you got there?
It was pandemonium before the police arrived, but that's what I observed when I got there, yes.
Okay, and you said there was a birthday cake there?
Yes.
In fact, you noted in your police report when you spoke to a man by the name of Corbin that this was a private birthday party. That was at least what the purpose of the use of the establishment was, according to him anyways?
Well, according to him, and not exclusively either, he stated that some of the persons there were there for a birthday party.
Okay. And did you ever ask the gentleman, I think you identified him as Andrew Corbin, is that right, sir?
That's correct.
Did you ever ask him to give you the number so you could call yourself to determine if he was calling the right number and if somebody was answering on the other line? Because at that point, you were certainly trying to reach the owner of the establishment. So first question I have, sir, is were you trying to reach the owner?
Was he trying to reach the owner?
Were you trying to reach the owner?
Yes, through him,
Okay, and it was important for you to reach the owner, is that right, sir?
clearly,
That night, is that right, sir?
clearly.
Okay, and do you have any records at City Hall who the registered owner is of the establishment and contact numbers for him? I just know some cities and towns do. This
Yes.
is more of an informative question.
I believe there was.
Okay.
But I also had the number, so it was irrelevant whether City Hall had it.
Okay, so did you try to call the owner, my client, yourself?
I believe so, but later on,
And did you reach him with no
No.
problem? Did you leave a message?
no.
You didn't say this is the Lowell Police Department calling, it's important you reach to it.
I didn't leave a message, so no.
You didn't leave a message?
Again, no.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to repeat myself. Did you send a cruiser to his home or call the local police department, asked him to come down and survey the situation at all, anything like that?
No, the extent of what I did, I believe, was I attempted to call him once. I didn't receive an answer. His employee attempted to call him approximately 23 times, didn't receive a satisfactory answer. And I requested that the Lowell Police Dispatch attempt to call him. I don't know if they did or not.
Okay, but you don't know if this Mr. Corbin was even trying to reach my client? In other words, you don't know if he's just telling you that, sort of blow you off. You don't know if he's really trying to reach my client.
I don't know. I can't say for sure who was on the other side of the line.
Okay,
Other
and do
than-
you know, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. If you're not done, I'll stop.
No, go ahead.
Okay, and do you know what time of night that you were making, that you yourself and and Mr. Corbin were trying to make these calls to my client?
Sometime subsequent to 1:30 and probably prior to 2:30, so.
Okay. And so, and look, I looked at your report, sir, and Mr. Corbin, at least he represented to you that he was in charge, is that right, sir?
No. He represented that he was an employee of your client, or rather the owner of the business.
Okay, I'm just going to ask you to look at your report, because you may have forgotten, he said, he told you he was in charge. Look at the fourth page of your report, you go down to the very last paragraph, third sentence. The male, Andrew Corbin, represented that he was in charge, but refused to identify himself as any sort of manager or shift leader of that restaurant nightclub, stating only that he was employed by the owner of the business. Did I read that right, sir?
Yes.
So he did indeed tell you that he was in, so quote unquote, you use the words, you put it in quotes, is that right?
That was his words, yes.
Yes, okay. Now, going back to the first page of your report, sir, when you arrived there, had somebody already sprayed the place with, what's OC, by the way?
It's commonly referred to as pepper spray.
Pepper spray, okay. And were you aware at least 3 or 4 officers had sprayed the place with pepper spray that night?
None prior to my arrival.
Okay, how about after your arrival?
I only saw one person spray personally.
Okay, have you read all these have you read your brother police officer's report in this matter, and were you aware that, who did you go there with?
Officer George Asamoah.
Asamoah, that he states in his report that he got there, you were leading the way, and he issued a second burst. Do you want to see his report, or does any of this refresh your recollection?
No, I testified a moment ago that I personally witnessed one person use OC spray, and that one person was Officer Asamoah.
Was he the only one?
That I personally witnessed at that time, yes.
Okay, were you aware, I mean, now looking at all the police reports, that at least 2 or 3 officers, that maybe even more, inside and outside the club, dispatched their pepper spray?
Well, when you talk about my awareness, you never finish your question whether I read the reports. I haven't read all the reports
Okay.
prepared by all the officers.
I'm sorry, I didn't know if you did or not. Which reports did you read, by the way, if you didn't read them all?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No. I believe there's 17 or 18 reports. I haven't read every word of every single one of them.
Sorry? I didn't hear you, sorry.
I believe there's 17 or 18 reports prepared just by police officials in this case, at least. I haven't read every word of every one of them.
Sorry? I'm sorry, it's not, it's,
I think he said he hasn't read
okay, I just couldn't
every
hear.
word of every report. Is that what you said?
Okay.
Yes, Commissioner, thank you.
But you've read how many reports, sir? That's all I'm trying to establish.
I don't know. I answered that question. I don't know.
And you know that you're certainly aware there are at least 17, 18 reports.
Yes,
How are you aware of that if you haven't read them?
because they're listed and enumerated in the Lowell Police computer system.
I see. Okay, so it wouldn't surprise you if I told you at least 3 or 4 officers dispatched their pepper spray that night inside the establishment.
No, I'm aware that persons did use OC spray.
And apparently you're describing the place as overcrowded and very small. Is that right, sir?
I'm sorry?
You're describing the place as overcrowded and very small. Is that right, sir?
That would be my description, although I don't believe I've used either of those words.
Okay, well then, if you could please, sir, give us your own words of what you observed, because according to your report, an officer and a Shoma, and forgive me if I mispronounce his name, he said that you were leading the charge into the place, according to his report. You want me to show it to you?
No, thank you.
Is that your recollection, that you were leading the charge into the place?
I certainly wouldn't use that phrase, but I was the first one inside the building.
Okay, and who was behind you? How many officers behind you?
Just Officer Asamoah.
Okay, and who dispatched their pepper spray first?
Once again, the only one I can directly testify to is Officer Asamoah.
Okay. And how soon after he entered the premises did he dispatch his pepper spray, sir?
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay, but in any event, how would you describe the scene when you arrived there, when you and Officer Asamoah arrived there? What would you describe the scene to be at that point?
It's described in great length in the police report that I prepared.
Well, let me do this, sir. Let me lead you into it. It was crowded, is that right?
Yes,
And there were people fighting, is that right?
yes.
And then the first thing that happens is somebody dispatches their pepper spray into the establishment.
No.
All right, what happened then?
Chronologically, if I may, we pulled up outside. I observed a fight inside. Myself and Asamoah exited our marked cruiser, began to approach the business. At that time, I observed that there was in excess of 200 persons inside, and that a very large number of them were fighting. Pardon me. In addition, I observed that it was dark inside and the lights were beginning to come on. As the lights began to come on, we were able to see that the chairs and glass bottles were being used as clubs, as well as missiles. At that time, I believed that we had to enter the business based on the threat of serious bodily injury or death was inside. We entered. I entered first. Officer Asamoah entered behind me. As soon as I entered, I was obviously enveloped in a large crowd and observed a large fight taking place in front of me. I observed a young gentleman, later found to be an 18-year-old male, actively kicking.
I just wanted you to describe the scene. I didn't want you to, you're certainly reciting a police report. If you want, I'll go through it with you. But I just want to know, it was crowded and there was fighting going on. Is that right, sir?
Yes, you asked me to describe it in my words, so I was attempting to do so.
Okay, but I think you went overboard and volunteered a few bits of information that were not responsive to the question, all due respect. But let me go to the first page of your report. It says page 2 on it, sir, I believe. Do you have it in front of you, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you said that when you arrived there were at least 10 persons actively fighting in the center of the nightclub, and numerous other persons were crowding around them. Is that right, sir?
Yes.
And who did your fellow officer, dispatch the pepper spray at that point?
Well, it wasn't at that point.
All right, when did he?
Subsequent to that point.
Okay, how soon after you arrived? Give me, you're talking about a chronology, sir. Give me, what time did you arrive there, first of all?
I don't recall the exact time. It was subsequent to 1:30.
Okay, well, would it tell you on the report when you arrived there?
No.
It doesn't.
No.
So it's after 1:30.
Yes.
Closer to 2, closer to 1:30, do you know?
Closer to 1:30.
Okay, so you get there at 1:30, is that right?
No,
Closer to 1:30?
yes.
Okay, so you don't know exactly what time you arrived there?
All right, we've established that he doesn't know exactly what
Okay,
time, but
so
it was
what
closer to
time
1:30
was the
than it
pepper
to 2.
spray dispatched, sir?
Once again, you asked me when Officer Asamoah dispatched his pepper spray. I don't know.
I mean, was it right away? Was it a few more minutes? Was there an event that triggered it? I'm just trying to figure out when he dispatched his pepper spray in a crowded establishment.
He would better be able to answer that question. I was
Is he here?
involved in a physical altercation with a young male in the middle of a large crowd of about approximately 200 persons, so I don't know exactly what he was thinking.
So
or
your
doing.
answer is you don't know when he dispatched his pepper spray?
That's been my answer three
Do you
times
know?
already.
I'm sorry?
That's been my answer 3 times.
Do you know
yes.
who he dispatched it at, sir?
I believe he dispatched it to the crowd.
At the crowd?
Yes.
Okay. Were there people that were just standing around that he dispatched it at?
I believe he dispatched it at the crowd.
Okay. Were you ever trained at the academy what pepper spray does to people that are just in a closed room?
I'm going to object to this whole line of testimony as completely irrelevant as to the violations of the license holder and the issues that are before the commission at this time. I just don't see the relevance.
We've allowed straying on both sides. Let's go
Just
ahead.
try to curtail it. We'll take all the information, we'll use what we have to make a decision, but if we can kind of streamline everything, it would.
Okay, I just want to establish that pepper spray was dispatched, and there were people that weren't fighting, weren't doing anything, and they scrambled to get out of the place, is that right?
People left. I don't know why they scrambled or left or why. They left.
Would you believe that pepper spray had anything to do with it? I mean, this is closed quarters and,
Sure, that was certainly part of it.
yeah, what does pepper spray do? Just real quick, I don't want to read his digest, I just want to read his digest version, I don't want.
If it'll speed things up, we'll take notice of the fact that most people exposed to pepper spray will
Thank you.
endeavor to get away from it.
In fact, you put in your report that he did dispatch the pepper spray at a crowd of people that were inside the establishment, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So did you ever put anybody in protective custody that night that was severely intoxicated?
No.
Did you ever see anybody serve that night any alcohol to a minor or an intoxicated person?
No.
Do you know if any of these people were actually in the establishment at all that you interviewed? You actually see them there, make an identification of them in the establishment?
Yes.
Okay, and these are the people you arrested?
Those and a number of other people, yes.
Okay. Well, the people that were in the establishment, well, you were aware that they had first of all, there's nothing illegal about serving bottles of champagne, is there?
Serving a bottle of champagne, that's correct.
Okay. And in addition to that, sir, the fact of the matter is that you didn't observe anybody being served that was intoxicated. Is that right, sir?
I didn't personally observe anyone being served at all.
Sorry?
To, so to speak, cut to the chase, Counselor, I didn't observe anybody be served at all inside the establishment.
So you didn't observe anybody, strike that. When you made these observations of people intoxicated, you don't know where they got intoxicated. Is that right?
Well, there's a reasonable inference, but once again, I didn't observe them being served within that business.
Okay, so you're just inferring that people were drinking. Is that right? In a liquor establishment?
I think what we have is that Officer Bowler testified that there were individuals that were intoxicated, but he didn't observe anyone specifically imbibe of those drinks. And we can move on from.
Okay, Mr. Corbin told you that he disputed your count of the number of people in the establishment. Is that right? And you noted,
Yes.
and you were good enough to note it in your report. Is that right?
Yes.
And what was his observation to you about the number of people that were there?
Said something to the effect that there were not even 70 people inside this business.
Okay. And were there people injured by police involvement after this, as a result of this incident?
Were there police injured, is the question?
No, were civilians injured?
As a result of police involvement, I don't know.
Okay, you don't know. All right, I have no further questions.
At this time, I just ask that we take a 2-minute recess. just for-
Second. All in
And-
favor?
Yeah, and before we go off, just in terms of treating everybody with respect, attorneys, police officers, residents, we can have some sort of decorum where everyone's entitled to a defense, everyone is entitled to do the prosecution the way they want to, and we'll just respect each other's arguments on both sides and go from there.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I was gonna tell you, we'll make you, we'll roll you. So get it. Stay.
May I point out that Club 44 is advertised on the internet on the
All right. If we could just, if we've got everybody, let's just resume. All right, we're back on the record. Officer, can you please identify yourself and spell your last name?
Okay. My name is Ed Dowling, D-O-W-L-I-N-G. I'm a police officer with the city of Lowell. My rank is lieutenant, and I'm assigned to the late night shift.
Okay. Do you want me to narrow it down? Go ahead. No.
Have you'd like to hear? Please, be my guest.
I was going to say, in the interest of expediency, you've already heard the prior testimony of Officer Bowler. What do you have to add to that?
Just about the same. I was across the street. I was there before Nathan Bowler and George pulled up in the cruiser. My assignment is to be downtown during the closing of the bars, and I saw the club. It was active. The lights were dim. The lights were flashing. The music was playing. And as I was watching the crowd, I started to notice a disturbance in front of the DJ booth. And it erupted into a fight. And by the time I called it in and walked across the street, there was 30 to 40 people fighting along the windows on the Palm Street side of the building. Officer Nathan Bowler and George Esmoa walked into the establishment, and they were the first two in. I came in after them, and at that point in time, there was a group of people in the passageway. There was a podium, a reservation desk, which was narrowing it down even more. And there was a large group of people fighting right there. And I told them to stop. They refused, and I used the OC spray and sprayed the group. I then went further into the bar, and I helped one person up off the floor because he was blocking the door, and people were stepping over him. I got him up. I went into the bar, or the dance floor, and I saw George to my left, and he was fighting with the individual, and he was standing up. I saw Nathan further into the front of the DJ area, and he was on the floor fighting with a couple of people. I attempted to get to Nathan to get him off the floor, and that's when I encountered two other people fighting, punching, kicking, pounding each other. One gets knocked down, and he's on the ground. As he's getting up, he picks up a chair, and he's about to throw it into the pile. At that point in time, I stopped him, and I brought him back to where George was, and with the assistance of someone else, we placed him in handcuffs.
Okay. And did you have an opportunity to observe any of the egresses, either means being obstructed in any way?
Yes. The door that you guys have been talking facing Palmer Street was chained and blocked. There was some type of barriers on the outside. There was a bunch of stuff behind the DJ booth blocking that area. And it was just that one path, unless you went around the bar another way and been to like the front of the restaurant where there's another bar area. We're basically in behind that front bar.
You're talking about when you come in the door to the bar
Yeah,
area.
if you come in the door, I remember,
windows.
if you go right to the left, there's a small bar area, and you go down this passageway, and it would bring you into the nightclub area of the bar.
Could you estimate the number of people that were inside the establishment?
Approximately 200 people.
All right. And you said that you were across the street at which location?
Where the old Palmer Street Fire Station was.
Okay.
Right on the corner. I was there before the fight broke out. The club was in full swing.
Okay.
The music was playing, the lights were flashing, and as I was just watching, you could see the disturbance taking place in front of the DJ booth.
Did you, from outside, could you tell the number of people that were inside?
Oh yeah, 200 people.
Okay.
It was packed.
Okay.
And let me ask, do you know if there was anybody who was charging a cover charge or admissions?
I had no first-hand knowledge of that, no.
Okay.
I have no questions.
Anything else from the law department?
Yeah, just real quick. Can you just describe the amount of officers who were eventually responded on scene, both LPD and otherwise?
There was approximately 33 officers that arrived. We had the late-night shift, which was about 16 officers working, 17. There was 5 on the downtown portable, and a couple of officers came from other jobs, from other locations to help out. Then we had the town of Drake it, I think they sent 2, state police sent in 4, and UMass Lowell probably another 4.
So over 30 officers
About
ended
30,
up responding
35
to this.
approximately, give or take.
And did you make any observations about the intoxication level of the individuals that you observed leaving the scene?
I formed the opinion that they're extremely intoxicated, some of them.
And that was based on your training and experience in observing?
Yes, sir. 30 years.
I have no further questions.
Thank you. Sir, there was a birthday party going on. You see the birthday cake, too?
I believe so, yes.
And no cover charge was being charged to the people entering the club? No one was being charged a cover charge when you were there?
No, sir.
Okay. And did you actually do a count of how many people were actually there by using one of those clickers where you count?
No, sir.
Okay. And you said some people were intoxicated, is that right, sir?
Yes, sir.
And some were not?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Lieutenant Donnelly.
Officer Osborne?
Good evening. Could you just state your name and spell it for the record?
Yes, Officer Osborne, OSB-ORN.
And I'll ask you the same. Go ahead.
Actually, I can get this off. Notwithstanding you were at the scene that night.
Yes.
I just want to, the only testimony I'm interested in is you responded to the hospital later that evening.
Yes.
Could you describe what you observed there?
I was dispatched to Lowell General Hospital to speak with someone that was a victim to a past assault at the Fortunato's restaurant.
And when you spoke to this individual, did you determine their age?
He said he was 19 years old.
And what did he say about Fortunato's?
He was present. He got assaulted at the club.
There's no hearsay rules.
Yeah, I mean, we take it all, we consider it for the weight that it's given.
He said he was present at the club, Fortunato's/Club 44 that evening.
And did you make an evaluation of his level of intoxication?
He was highly intoxicated, slurred speech, glassy, bloodshot eyes. He was verbally assaulted towards staff at the hospital.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Sir, you made a report on this case?
Yes.
And when you make out your report, you're trying to be as accurate and as truthful as you can be about remembering the events when they're fresh in your mind that night?
Yes.
What does your report say that he was assaultive? That's an important point, don't you think? He was assaultive towards hospital staff?
That he was, yeah. That's
So
what
why is it in your report? That's an important point, don't you think?
Yes. He
And,
was
and when you made out the report, you made it out that night when the events were fresh in your mind, right?
yes.
Is it in your report?
Not that he was verbally abusive towards the staff, no.
But you do agree with me, that's a very important point.
Yes.
Okay, let me ask you this. Did you ever ask this gentleman to produce an ID to show you?
I asked the hospital staff of his age.
No, sir. You're a trained police officer, gone through the academy, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever ask this individual in the hospital to produce identification so, A, you can accurately determine who he was and his age without asking somebody at the hospital? 'Cause how do you know he told the truth to the people in the hospital?
I don't recall.
You don't recall now? So are you trained to get identification from people, especially at 19, you assume he's driving, right?
Yes.
Did you ask to see his driver's license at all?
I can't recall. I'm sure I did when I was speaking with them.
Where does it say that in your police report? You just said you asked, a moment ago, sir, you stated to this board that you asked the hospital staff for his age. You did not tell the board, correct me if I'm wrong, that you asked to see his license. Did you not just say that a moment ago, sir?
Yes.
So you didn't ask to see his license, is that right?
I don't recall.
Now you don't recall?
No.
Okay. Well, isn't it something you're trained to do, sir? to ask to see a person's license?
Yes, I'm sure I did. I can't recall if I either got it from him or the.
Well, a
staff.
moment ago, you said you asked the hospital staff.
No, we
I
got,
think-
he's
I think we've
he's
covered that.
unsure.
You got that, right?
We got that, yeah.
Okay.
We got it. We know you're going with the totem pole hearsay argument, that it's hearsay from a third party.
Well, I'm
Got
just
it.
saying that he could have just looked at his license. Now, sir, did you, you formed the opinion that this person was intoxicated, is that right?
Yes.
But he was laying down in a hospital gurney, was he not?
No.
He wasn't?
No, he was just sitting on the bed. They were getting ready to discharge him.
Did you do any field sobriety tests?
Don't have to.
Don't have to. Well, did he communicate well with you?
No, he was very incoherent. He had slurred speech. He was glashy, bloodshot eyes. He was clearly intoxicated.
Did you use the word incoherent in your police report, sir?
No.
You're not trying to embellish the facts, are you, sir?
No.
Being incoherent is an important fact. Aren't you trained at the academy to be observant and put facts that you observe that are important to what you're investigating, sir?
Yes.
But you didn't do it, did you? Yes or no?
Not that he was incoherent. No, I didn't put that in my report.
Well, that's important, isn't it? Do you
Yes.
agree with me? At least it's
Yes.
important?
I think we got the point.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
Do you have any, sir, other than this person purportedly telling you that he was at Fortunato's, do you have any evidence that he was at Fortunato's?
No.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions.
Nothing else? Next witness? Sergeant Frank Nobrega.
What's this guy's name?
State your name and spell it, please.
Frank Nobrega, N-O-B-R-E-G-A.
Sergeant Nobrega, you responded to Fortunato's on the 10th, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
And before we get any further, there's been a packet of photographs that we've been referring to. You recognize these photographs?
Yes, I do.
And did you in fact take these photographs?
Yes, I did.
And they're accurate yeah, sorry, you took them when you were, after the incident on the 10th of
I'll
Fortunato's?
stipulate to the photographs, gentlemen.
Thank you.
I mean, cut through the chase.
When you arrived at Fortunato's, did you observe anything about Palmer Street entrance?
Yes, I did.
And can you just describe for the commission what you observed?
I arrived approximately 1:30. Lieutenant Darling was calling for extra assistance. As I pulled up on Palmer Street, I noticed in the big glass windows an active fight going on, 30 to 40 individuals. An individual picked up a chair, threw it into the crowd. At that time, being familiar with Fortunato's and been a patron there in the past, I went to the side entrance and tried to make entry. At that time, there was numerous people trying to get out. The looks of their faces were in panic that they couldn't get out. There was fence posts with cement barriers blocking my exit, my entrance. I tried to step over them, tried to pull on the door, couldn't get in. Other officers were following me, trying to get in. They couldn't get in because of the locked door. We went to the front to get in at that time.
And looking at the second picture in the stack, is that the objects now lying down that were blocking the entrance on Palmer Street?
That's correct.
And I apologize, this has apparently become an issue. I don't have copies of the photograph. I'll show it to my brother before I...
Is this a new photograph?
Yes.
Can I see that again, please? Thank you.
Did you take that photograph at the same time?
That's correct.
Where is this sign located?
This would be at the front entrance, if you're looking at the establishment, I believe.
So the main entrance to the establishment has this sign?
On Middle and Palmer, right to the, I would believe it would be to the left.
And that says Club 44 at Fortunato's, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
when you arrived?
At that time, when I arrived maybe 2 to 3 minutes after. I was probably about the 8th or 9th officer. People were exiting the place. Inside, still a good 70 to 80, 30 to 40 actively fighting. And it should be noted at that time, all entrances as the police were arriving, even from the assisting the state police and everything else, if you're familiar, Palmer Street was blocked by police vehicles. Middle Street was blocked by police vehicles. The only combatants and the only people in that quick vicinity were patrons exiting this establishment. The establishment, I believe it was Fuse, or the old firehouse, those patrons were in the windows, too scared to come out at that time. So they were basically held hostage in their establishment.
I'm going to object, because the police reports say that they were told to stay in their establishment.
That was another establishment, sir, if I may.
Well, how does he know they were too,
I could see the look on their face, sir. Their look on their face was a horror, just like the people at the door that couldn't exit the establishment.
Okay, I get it. All right, we got it.
Ma'am, I can't have people from the audience interfering in the hearing, okay?
what did she say?
Let's just move on.
Okay, did you make any observations about open alcohol containers when you entered the establishment?
As Officer Bowler testified, prior to my arrival, they were used as weapons. When I arrived, they were on the floor. Officers had beer, all over their jackets. There was broken bottles on the floor. There was 4 to 5 champagne bottles on certain tables that were open. When I inquired, one of the waitresses said, well, I monitored their drinking. In my experience of being a patron at restaurants and being a police officer for 20 years, there was no way with that crowd and with individual champagne bottles at each table, 4 tables, she could monitor that situation with an 18 and over club. So it lent itself to either over-service or drinking by minors.
And did, at some point in time, were you aware that the PD had to force open the Palmer Street door?
At that time, when I finally went into the establishment by the front door, as Lieutenant Darling testified, he helped somebody up. There was other individuals that were falling down. It prevented the officers from getting in to quell the situation. Not only that, it started to do a bottleneck situation where the only exit at that time, which I later learned, was that exit. If that was bottlenecked to a point, the only way they were getting out was going through huge plate glass windows. That was the only way. When I finally got in there, being familiar with that side entrance, tried to open it, see what the reason why it wasn't opening, and it was padlocked. At that time, I tried to push it open. I couldn't. Officer Patel took it down.
And not to be redundant, but the first picture, that's the door we're talking about, right? That's the Palmer Street door with the padlock on it you observed.
That's correct.
And it was locked that night.
That's correct.
And you couldn't get through it.
That's correct.
And the PD had to break it down.
That's correct.
And you had to knock down the poles that are in the second picture. You had to knock these poles down to...
They came knocked down, and 30, 40 people fleeing out probably knocked them down too.
I have no further questions.
Counsel.
Yes, Sergeant Brega. There was officers going in trying to do their job, is that right?
That's correct.
And safety of the patrons was one of the officers, including yourselves, concerned, is that right, sir?
Safety of all, yes.
Safety of all the people inside the establishment, is that right, sir?
That's correct.
Was there anybody in the police department directing people to leave the establishment while you corralled, so to speak, if you will, the troublemakers?
Sir, at that time, we didn't have enough...
Could you just answer my question, yes or no, sir? At any point in time were the officers sort of directing people out of the restaurant so you could attend to the people that were causing the trouble?
Well, I think our first
Yes
step...
or no, sir?
Our first step would be to quell...
Yes or no, sir?
Our first step would be to quell the disturbance, then get medical care. If we don't quell the disturbance, we're going to have more people that need to go to the hospital, if not death or more bodily injury.
When you got there, how many officers were there, sir? You said
Excuse me?
8? I think you said 8.
I was probably about the 8th officer.
Okay. And I think it's, Officer Bowler said there were 10 or 15 people fighting. Have you read his report?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so he says there were 10 or 15 people fighting. He was the first officer on scene, is that right?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so he saw 10 or 15 people, is that right?
That's right.
Okay. And would you agree with me, 10 or 15 people is a lot less than you described, 30 or 40, is that right?
Sir, it's based on estimates.
Sir.
But do you want me to answer the question, yes or no?
I do want you to answer the question. First question is, would you agree with me that 10 or 15 people is a lot less than 30, 40?
Sure.
Okay.
Common
So was your attention and your fellow officers' attention directed towards the people that were, so to speak, the troublemakers? And trying to quell them, and then trying to get the people that were, let's say, for the sake of this discussion, non-troublemakers, out of the establishment before they got hurt, or they started in on the fight, or they got in your way? I'm trying to figure that out, sir.
Sir, for the sake of your discussion, I'll sum it up very simple. It started off as a fist fight. If there were people in there, and I'm sure there were, that didn't want anything involvement in the fight, if they went to exit to the left, the door's locked. If they went to exit in the rear, it's blocked, and they're getting thrown by bottles. Not only bottles, they were getting, a cobblestone got thrown. If they even said, you know what, let's get out of the fight and let's get into the kitchen, you can't get into the kitchen, because what he did was took all the restaurant tables and chairs and stacked them pile high in the kitchen.
Okay, I appreciate it.
So you could not escape a fight.
Okay.
So based on that, all
I
those
wasn't-
actions...
I
of the
wasn't
doors
asking you
blocking,
if people could
A
escape.
simple fight of two people escalated into a riot.
I was just trying to find out what the police did to quell the situation and to make this, if they could, an orderly dispersal of this problem in this small establishment.
Is it fair to say then that your first priority was to quell the fighting?
That's correct. If we didn't quell it,
Okay.
we would have lost control of that whole block.
So getting back to the number of people, I won't belabor the point. Where does it say in your police report there were 30, 40 people fighting?
A large active fight inside the first floor. No numbers, large active fight.
Okay. Well, you're not here to embellish the story in any way, are you, sir?
Absolutely not, sir. I mean,
Okay.
5
Now, again,
officers were
as
hurt.
I asked, sorry,
14
you
arrests,
answered
I
the
don't think
question,
I'm
you're not.
embellishing.
Let me go to the next question, sir. You're
Oh,
also,
I take offense that you're accusing the sergeant of the
guys.
police department of embellishing a record. I take offense to it.
Okay.
I really, truly
no
do.
offense intended, sir, I'm just trying to get to the facts. Believe me, no offense
gonna-
intended. I gotta drive out of the
Cut
city.
everybody off
I'm-
here for a second. All right? It's late, I know.
I have a
I get it. All right. I understand your questioning. All right, but let's just keep it one for one. Nobody talk over each other. Makes it real difficult to keep a good record. I have a hard time taking notes. Ask anybody who knows me. I'm not that bright. I can focus on one thing at a time. All right, so please, just one of you at a time.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Sir, you're trained to observe and to, by the way, when did you make out this police report?
That morning.
That morning, when the events were fresh in your mind?
That's correct.
And would you agree with me that if there were indeed 30, 40 people fighting, you would have recorded that number in your police report, because most definitely it's an important fact to put in the police report? But you did not, sir. Is that a true statement?
I recorded there was a large active fight, sir. Did I have a clicker, and did I say, hold on, guys, let me count how many are fighting, and click to see how many fight? No, I did not. I'm sorry.
Can we just we'll take observance of the fact that the report does not contain a number.
Now, let me ask you this, sir. You said you've been to this establishment before?
Yes,
How many times have you been there?
years ago. Probably 10 years ago.
10 years ago?
10 years ago.
And I'm just curious, why did you mention that in your testimony?
Because I would know, I would be out in the patio having dinner inside with my wife. You would use that door to go in and out.
Okay. Well, when you went in there on the night of the February 10th, did the place change at all since you were there with your wife for dinner?
That's correct. I made it into a nightclub.
Well, do you know, have you been there before? Let me ask you this. Do you know when they made it into a nightclub?
No idea.
Could it be that was just that one night?
No, sir, because prior to that, I did see pamphlets that were handed out by promoters promoting Club 44 that were around downtown. I didn't take notice to it. I'm a little
You
too
didn't
old
take
to go to
notice of it?
nightclubs now.
Well, I've been reading the newspaper articles and all the problems you've been having downtown. Wouldn't you want to see if this place was a legal nightclub?
I don't get the Lowell Sun at home, sir.
Sorry?
I don't get the Lowell Sun.
So you don't know what's going on in town?
That's not true.
Oh, I thought it would be.
Sir,
All right,
as
in
of that
fairness,
night,
we're gonna take judicial
as of that
notice of the
night, there would
fact-
be no note. Sorry.
We're going to take notice of the fact that, you can know what's going on without reading the Lowell Sun. Next question.
Okay. Well, let me ask you a question. Relax.
I have the flu. I've been, for
Okay,
3
well,
days.
no, if you want a glass of
Tough.
water, if you want to sit down, it's okay with the
All
board.
right, let's go.
Next
Question.
Okay, so, sir, the flu, I'm sorry you have the flu, but let me get back to,
Thank you.
you saw what? The sign that said Club 44?
That's correct.
Did you see the birthday cake?
Yes.
In fact, you spoke to Mr. Corbin, and he told you it was a private 21st birthday party?
Mr. Corbin gave us different versions of events. He said at one point it was a birthday party. At one point it was over 18. At one point they hired a promoter, DJ Money, I believe, to facilitate the event.
Where does it say that? Well, let me ask you this. It does say,
We'll just-
I'm going to
we'll
say
just say
that
for
was
record,
at least
we had
in
a,
one of the
uh,
reports that
There was a
referencing
city
DJ
council
Money.
meeting where the,
I'm sorry?
there was a city council meeting,
Right.
and the promoter came to the city council meeting and testified
Okay.
as to the events that happened that night. So
No, did he implicate my client?
he did, but we're going to take what's going on in this hearing right now.
My client here.
Yeah, yes, and like I said, that happened outside the hearing, so we're not going to consider it at this hearing. We have to rely on the evidence that we have in front of us at the hearing. So, but yes, I will tell you that at least in one of these reports, having reviewed them, there's at least one reference to the DJ Money and the promoter.
But I'm talking about my client, Mr. Ayub, whether he hired him, whether he participated in having him, whether he booked the event with my client. That's what I'm trying to establish, and it's important to our defense, and I'll tie it in as,
Sergeant Abrega, if you know, was this individual hired by this man sitting right here, Mr. Ayub?
I have no knowledge.
okay, thank you for giving me that opportunity. Sir, I feel bad for you because you have the flu, so I'm just going to try to cut it out. And do you know if this, last question, I promise, this event that you and your fellow officers had to respond to, was this the first time you had to go to this establishment?
For a situation like this, yes.
You patrol that sector, do you not, in your police car, Sergeant?
At that time, no, I was just promoted to the rank of sergeant, so that was one of my first nights downtown at that
Okay. Congratulations, but when were you promoted?
February, first week of February.
And before you that, you were just a patrol officer, sir?
That's right.
Did you patrol the Palmer Street, that area?
I patrolled Appleton Street up another section.
Okay. And did you see a nightclub going on in there before that night?
Did I know?
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
No question.
I just want to thank him, by the way.
I did not, quite frankly, think this was going to be an issue, so I apologize for doing this. But I am going to have to call back Lieutenant Dowling just for a very brief question, based on some of the defense that my brother tends to raise. I will make this as brief as I possibly can. Lieutenant, you regularly work in the downtown?
Yes, I do.
And you had an opportunity over the course of that time to be familiar with the establishments in the neighborhood?
Yes, sir.
You're familiar with Fortunato's?
Yes, I am.
How long had you been working in that area at nights?
Well, I don't have a particular assignment. I'm a street lieutenant, so the whole city is basically you're responsible for. But with the disturbances and disorder in downtown Lowell, my primary assignment is to go downtown on weekends.
Is it fair to say that you made observations about the activity level at Fortunato's?
Yes, I did.
Are we talking about the night in question, or?
No, over time.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure I understood his question.
Sorry, yeah.
Lieutenant, let me just cut to the chase. Have you previously seen the place being utilized in a similar manner, either for nightclub purposes or having any advertising with Club 44?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and when was that?
I think I noticed a change in December. All of a sudden, we'll just say there was a regular crowd that was always at the bar, 12, 20 people, depends. And then all of a sudden, there was more and more people. And then one night I was down there and, there was probably 30, 40 people that came out. And I said, geez, I didn't even you couldn't see them. Because at that point in time, the shades or curtains were drawn in the back. But it was just basically over the month of December, I formed the opinion that his clientele had changed dramatically. And then they put a sign up that said Club 44.
And was that prior to this night, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
No questions.
I just have this was December of 2011, sir?
Yeah.
Okay.
I noticed a change.
And did you notice anything illegal or anything going on that was improper or untoward?
No, sir. No.
Okay, so you noticed what, sir? You noticed 30, 40 people going into the place? You say you noticed a clientele change. I just want to know,
I noticed.
is that a bad connotation, or I'm just trying to figure out what you meant by that?
No, I mean, all of a sudden, there was, a small group of people at the bar. They're there, you'd see them, you'd drive by. There was really a small bar. And then in the month of December, you noticed more and more people in the bar, and then there were people behind the bar. But I mean, I didn't notice anything illegal.
Nothing improper?
No, no.
And
I just
around-
noticed a change because it was very quiet before that.
December is around the holidays, and people usually have their parties or have parties more often in, restaurant establishments, is that right?
Yes, yeah.
All right, so the purpose of your testimony is that you saw a change in clientele. You saw 30 or 40 more people.
Younger people.
At the bar, yeah.
Younger
that's all-
people,
that's
yeah.
all-
Yeah. There was a change.
Okay, I have no problem with that.
All right.
At this point, I'm going to call Lieutenant Siobs, please.
Good evening. Tom Siopes, Lowell Police, SIOPES.
Thank you.
And I'm just going to cut to the chase. You had a conversation with the DJ that was there that night, is that correct?
Yeah, actually, it was technically the same day, but it was the next night.
Yeah, let me step back. You were not at the fight.
I was not at scene at the fight.
An individual came in and spoke to you on the 10th, but later in the evening of the 10th, is that correct?
Yes.
Can you describe what that individual told you?
An individual came into the main desk of the police station, identified himself as the DJ at Club 44 the night before, which I guess technically would be earlier that day, much earlier that day, and wanted to get his account on record, he asked. He said he thought his name had been damaged, his reputation had been damaged from all the talk that had been generated in the last few hours.
And based on your conversation with him, what information did you glean about the previous evening at Club 44 at Fortunato's?
The disc jockey had told me that he had concerns of the security, or lack thereof, with a man who identified himself as the owner of the club, that he had been texting, and he showed me the text on the phone that he had texted this gentleman and said, and I quote, "So what's up with security?" To which the individual he believed to be the owner returned through text, "None right now." And then the DJ responded, "Well, I think we going to need some for tonight." And then he followed up with a phone call urging him to get some security.
And you were familiar with this DJ, is that correct?
Nope, not at all. It's the first time I'd ever seen him.
Let me rephrase that. You were familiar with a situation that not a situation, an event that this DJ had at some point in time earlier, is that correct?
Yes, yeah. He had said that he expected a large crowd because he had packed, I believe those were exact words, he had packed the brewery a couple weeks earlier, a situation that I
I'm
was familiar
sorry,
with.
I couldn't hear those last few words. I apologize.
He had stated that he had packed a venue known as the brewery.
Thank you,
just a
sir.
few weeks
Thank you.
earlier.
Apologize for the
And
interruption.
he said because he had packed a much larger venue a few weeks prior, he anticipated the same following would have followed him to the Fortunato's.
Did he give you some information about cover charges?
He had told me that his arrangement with the, once again, the person he identified, or he believed to be the owner, that he would collect $5 at the door Oh, I'm sorry, let me preface that. He said that he was going to collect and keep the cover charges as payment. And the agreement was as follows: $5 for someone with a college ID, $10 for someone without a college ID, and free to people aged 21 and over before 11 p.m.
Okay, I have no further questions.
Sir, Lieutenant, thank you. I read your report, and when you refer to the owner in your report, you're referring to a man named Andrew, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
And obviously, that's not my client. He's not Andrew.
Well, what's his name? I don't know.
Mr. Yusuf Ayub.
Oh, no, he said the person's name was quote-unquote Andrew, and that was the name on the phone that he showed me, too. And he actually has a phone number, a 603 phone number, as you can probably see in the report.
Okay. And he came in voluntarily to the police station, is that right?
Yes.
And are you a desk officer, or are you?
I believe I was the commanding officer that night, and he came into the...
Okay. Do you usually patrol Lowell at night? What's your shift?
Right now, I'm working right now, hence the uniform.
Okay, so your shift is what, the first half, second half?
Yeah, typically it's 4:30 in the afternoon till 12:30 in the morning.
12:30 in the morning. So typically, you wouldn't, would you patrol the city of Lowell?
Yeah, my counterpart on the late night shift, Lieutenant Dowling, just like him, we have the
So
whole city.
Both of you cover the city, okay.
That's correct.
Have you ever had any problems with my client, and this is my client, the owner's establishment, Fortunato's, before this night?
No, sir.
First time it ever happened, to your knowledge?
I've never had a problem with them.
And how long have you been a police officer and a lieutenant?
I've been a police officer for 15 years. I've been a lieutenant for 3 years.
Okay, so at least in the last 5 years, let's say 7 years, you've not heard of any nightclub use problems or anything whatsoever at Fortunato's?
No.
Okay. In fact, I see your reports are computerized. You can very easily punch in the address and find out on your computer system how many responses of drunk driving or over-serving or any violations at all just by punching in an address. Is that right?
Could I? Yes, I could.
You could?
Is that your question?
Yeah.
Yes, I could.
So you have the capability, if you had it for a while, via your computer system at Lowell, if you wanted to find out if there's been police calls or emergency calls or anything of that nature before February 10th of 2012, you could very easily just do that by punching in the address.
Yes, very easily.
Okay. Has anybody done that for this establishment to determine if this was a one-time episode or if there's been other calls or other problems to this location?
I don't know.
Have you done it at least?
No.
Has anybody that has testified tonight, to your knowledge?
I would have no, I don't know.
Well, broader question, has anybody, to your knowledge, ever tried to determine if this was a first-time episode or you've had other problems at this location?
Once again, Counselor, I don't know.
Let me just ask, Mr. Secretary, have we had prior incidents with this establishment?
None.
Okay. We'll just consider that going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Good night, sir.
too.
Have a good night.
No, other than cross-examination of the owner, I have no further evidence.
With the board's permission, I'd like to read a statement. My client, as you can see, is a scar. He's had cancer surgery, and it'll be very difficult. But this statement would be adopted by him, and I'd like to read it into the record. To the city of Lowell.
I apologize. I'm going to object to the statement being read if he's not going to be subject to cross-examination. I have questions I'd like to ask.
Okay. To the city of Lowell License Commission.
We've already done a couple of Crawford issues, and it doesn't apply here anyway, so.
Walter Bowles, Chairman, Raymond Weicker, Commissioner, Brian Akazian, Commissioner. I hope I pronounced your names right. Sorry. Okay. This is in response to the allegations being made against my client, Mr. Ayub, and Fortunato's by the City of Lowell Police Department. I would first like to emphasize that Mr. Ayub does not treat these allegations lightly and is ashamed and embarrassed and humiliated by what occurred on February 10th, 2012 at Fortunato's. Mr. Ayub is a family man with a wife and 3 young children. Their ages are 14, 11, and 4. He is a computer engineer by trade and his wife is a cancer research scientist. My client purchased Fortunato's in August of 2005 at a substantial out-of-pocket investment. He saw it as an opportunity to do business in the Lowell area with his family members helping him run Fortunato's. He has run it for the past approximately 7 years without incident until this incident which occurred on February 10, 2012. You can confirm this clean record by checking your own records relating to this establishment since 2005. Ironically, on or about October 2010, my client developed cancer and has been undergoing numerous treatment and surgeries. He thought the cancer was removed on or about October 11th. It came back and he's currently undergoing further surgery and treatment. Around this time, which was October of 2011, he was solicited by a man named Andrew Corbin and his partner Kevin Brady, who indicated to him that they had substantial experience in running a restaurant and convinced him to allow him to assist him to run the restaurant as managers. My client has never operated Fortunato's as a nightclub. Mr. Corbin and Mr. Brady had the idea of booking Fortunato's for small birthday parties, graduations for UMass students, and small wedding parties. Also, Fortunato's has 3 means of egress. Apparently, there has been no incidents that my client is aware of regarding the management of Mr. Corbin and Mr. Brady until February 10, 2012. It is important to note that on December 21st, 2011, and each and every year Mr. Ayub has operated Fortunato's. He has been inspected by the fire department, the health department, have all conducted thorough inspections as they are required under the law, and they have found no violations. Nothing really has changed since his last inspection. On February 12, 2012, which my client once again states is regrettable and unfortunate, there was a fight between a small group of troublemakers. This was a one-time incident. After it happened, the city of Lowell and all the departments have literally thrown the book at him. He has been shut down since February 10, 2012. He is on the verge of bankruptcy. He is not blaming the board. He's not blaming the police department, the building department, or the fire department. I will get into that in a moment. The health department forced him to shut his doors for violations ordinarily you would not, having been 30 years experience dealing with licensing authorities, you wouldn't shut a business down. It's been immediately after all these boards, the fire department, the police department, the health department, the building department, whatever they were told to do, they responded immediately. And you can check with everybody and all the departments, and you'll find that the only thing preventing him from opening his establishment is that this board or another board, I don't know who licenses entertainment, revoked his license or suspended it. He has voluntarily not opened his doors, nor could he, because of the fact that the health department told him until he makes peace with the board, this board, that they won't allow him to open. As I said, he has done everything the health department required to do. He and the landlord corrected all the building code violations within 1 week of being told of these issues. And as the esteemed building commissioner testified, there wouldn't be issues if he was just operating it as a restaurant. It was never his intent, never his intent to operate it as a nightclub. That is not what this establishment has been, that he has operated it for the last 7 years that he owned it. My client and I have read the news accounts of other purported problematic barroom establishments in the vicinity of Fortunato's, and it appears that none of them have suffered the same fate as Fortunato's. I would agree that maybe the degree of the problem that occurred at Fortunato's was not as great, but still, my client's been shut down for 2 months. He's on the verge of losing it all. He has been made a scapegoat here, and as I said, he's been ruined financially. This is not your problem. Your problem is to have him run a clean, good establishment so everybody can coexist. Nobody, I assume, in this city wants to drive out business, as long as it's a responsible business. I emphasize the word responsible. While it would be counterproductive to answer each and every specific allegation being leveled by the building, fire, police departments against my client, a few are worth mentioning. And again, I respect these gentlemen, believe me. I hope they understand they have a job to do, and I just wanted to bring out certain facts. Certain facts are undisputable, no doubt. The February 10, 2012 incident was caused by a small group of troublemakers, and my client and I hope the criminal justice system deals with whatever they did in the most expeditious and judicial manner as warranted. Whatever they did was wrong. My client had no idea that this was going to happen. He was told by Mr. Corbin this was going to be a small birthday party with approximately 25 to 30 people attending. He was there that day. Had he known this was going to happen, he would have stopped it dead in its tracks. Both Mr. Ayub and his wife have crowd control certificates. He does have them. It is impossible to have the number of people. It is physically impossible. And I say this with all due respects to the police officers, to have the number of people that they claim were in. It was crowded, there's no doubt. But I just don't think the crowd estimates were accurate. There were some estimates, I read the reports, of 170. He has a legal capacity of close to that. It's a two-level establishment. Mr. Ayub is not attempting to avoid his responsibility as the owner of this establishment. He did not see this coming, as I said. Otherwise, he would have stopped it. He has never given an opportunity to explain himself, and he feels helpless. He wants to reopen and will listen to people's concerns and will abide by all reasonable recommendations, but the severe sanctions against him have put him out of business. The Lowell Police Department, in all due respect to these gentlemen, are trying to demonize him and make him a scapegoat. They are picking on the wrong person. He's a victim just as much as anyone else was. He is not, by making that statement, he is not avoiding, he understands his responsibility, his legal responsibility. He wants peaceful coexistence as a business owner with the city of Lowell, especially the building, health, and the police department. If he had done this before, had prior violations, or had been warned, then you have every right to throw the book at him. We're not going to deny that. This is not the case here. He has been closed for 2 months, as I said repeatedly. He's created a financial ruin, and now his only hope of saving his family is to try to sell the place. So I respectfully ask you, if you're going to revoke his license, make it retroactive, because he has voluntarily basically not been in operation for 2 months. And I plead with you, and I understand feelings are raw, and people's emotions are high, as they rightly should be. And I just want you to know, in closing, he's not the person that he's been made out to be. He's a respected man that put a lot of money into this restaurant, had the best intentions, and he was a victim of circumstances. I thank you. I know the hour is late. Again, I apologize for being late myself, and I hope and pray that you will come to a just decision. Thank you.
Look, for the sake of expediency, I know we have listed as two separate hearings with the issues with respect to suspension, revocation, and rollback of hours. Would you waive having a second hearing and allowing us to make the decisions simultaneously?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Before we go on, I just wanted to know if the police department, whether Captain Webb or Superintendent LaValle, would like to address the board.
Thank you, Commissioner, for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Kenneth LaValle. I'm the chief of the Lowell Police Department. The night that this occurred, the officers sitting here before you were put in extreme danger. It's my responsibility as chief to make sure those officers are protected each and every time they go out on the street. And when those officers are put in harm's way, I feel personally responsible. It's his responsibility as the owner of the establishment to make sure that the establishment is run well and things are done to maintain decorum and order. And in that particular night, that was completely lost. The people you see here sitting before you tonight are the residents who live in downtown Lowell. Those people also have a stake here because those people are subjected to the disorder and the activity, the disorder on a regular basis. And that's why they're here tonight. So I think that I appreciate what you're saying. Your eloquent speech about this gentleman and his condition and the situation he finds himself in is certainly very, very well spoken. However, I think that I'm asking the commissioners tonight to consider what happened that night, the situation these officers were put in, the fact that these people who live downtown are subjected to this order on a regular basis. I understand and I fully acknowledge that this is the first time that we've ever had a problem at Fortunato's. There has not been any problems in the past. And we have dealt with other establishments that have been problematic, but this was to the extreme. This was over the top. This was dangerous for our officers and the citizens of this city. And I think that a message needs to be basically sent tonight that this establishment did things that were improper, and we have to set I guess, a record that we will not tolerate this type of behavior in the city of Lowell. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Oh, Eric, you want?
No, I appreciate my brother's statement. I just wanted to make a couple of very brief, kind of factual corrections. The only testimony that you have before you tonight is the legal occupancy of the first floor of that building where this was going on was 108, and with all due respect to my brother, I don't think it's anything near 170. There's been no testimony from anybody about any occupancy other than 108 persons. I do want to.
We have the inspection certificate.
Yeah,
that has the occupancy on it.
It's 150, 108 on the first floor,
108
42 on the second floor.
Right, yeah, and again, that I just wanted to make that clear. Secondly, and just kind of as a policy issue, I know, because I've sat in on enough of these hearings, and I know that you both know, that the first thing that a licensee the first speech they get is, this is his license. And his defense, with all due respect, that I wasn't there and I got fooled and this other guy took over, is ludicrous. The whole reason that we give licensees that speech, the whole reason that this commission makes it clear to licensees when they get their license that it's their license and they're going to be held responsible no matter what happens, it's because that's the case. And the law is clear that it doesn't matter whether he knew or didn't know about the situation that was going on that night. He's responsible. And as such, I quite frankly, I think that the board should completely disregard his claims that, some other individual was the person in charge. If he ceded his responsibility for the safety of the patrons, for the safety of the police officers who were responding, to some third party, that alone, I think, is grounds for revoking his license. Notwithstanding that, I would request that the board weigh all the evidence and take whatever action it sees as appropriate against the licensee tonight.
Just after hearing all the testimony today on both sides, I think a couple things stand out. Number one was the testimony of the fire department that showed that they gave the establishment, whether or not it was Mr. Ayub or one of his employees, your employees are a reflection of you. They're an agent of you, and what's said to an employee is deemed to be said to you. And there were fire violations that Lieutenant Ryder observed on February 4th and informed you of. Now, unfortunately, he didn't get the written notice till after this incident on the 10th, but I would respectfully suggest that your employee would immediately tell you if the fire department was there and notice some violations. I think at the heart of this is just the complete lack of control of Fortunato's by their manager, Mr. Ayub. Now, we've had some issues recently in the downtown area, and we're addressing them. That week in the newspaper, the headline was Wild Wild West. And every owner, manager, employee should have been aware that there was going to be a heightened sense of security in downtown Lowell, should have been aware that there were incidents of individuals coming to the city to, take part in festivities that were, they came to Lowell because they could see that it was becoming out of control. So, as a bar owner, you have to be aware of what's going on. You have to take control of your establishment, especially after that headline. You hired Mr. Corbin to promote this place, and I take your illness seriously, and I wish you a healthy recovery. But, there's a sign on the door that says 44 at Fortunato's. So clearly the business model of Fortunato's had transferred from a restaurant to a nightclub. And whether you're sick or not in touch with what's going on with that establishment, it's your license, and you have to control what's going on there. And it's apparent to me, I think even in the Lowell Sun newspaper earlier that month or late January, there was talk about Club 44, about how the city's got to control these nightclubs. So it's clear that not only were the police aware, the public was aware that the business plan of Fortunato's was changing. Now, we've had testimony from all the officers, and we also had testimony from, I've heard from other officers. I think it was, from what I've gathered, it was a very dangerous situation that night. Every officer that has spoken has testified as to such, that it was really just out of control. And whether you're in Florida, out of the country, it's your establishment. You're responsible for what goes on. And, that dangerous situation, we're very lucky that there was no one severely injured or killed that night because of what went on in that establishment. And I know you don't have any prior history before the board, but I think this is just an egregious violation. And the amount of people that were in that establishment, there's no contention that there were people on the second floor, so that lowers the capacity to 108. And all the officers testified in their estimation, in their training, there were 200 people. It's clearly well above the capacity for the establishment. The door was locked. We have the picture. The other entrance was blocked by barriers. There's pictures of chairs stacked in the kitchen. There was no way to get out. It was a dangerous situation. And, we're lucky that, there wasn't, if, God forbid, there had been a fire that night and not a fight, we would have had a very, very dire situation on our hands. I know previously we had taken away the entertainment license, but that really hasn't had any effect because they haven't been open. I know Attorney Jabor mentioned that your intention was to never run it this way. It may not have been your intention, but the establishment ended up being run as a nightclub and just had, it may not have had any bad nights previously, but it had a really, really bad night on February 10th. And whether Mr. Corbin or the promoter or whoever was, thought you had control of the establishment that night, it's your responsibility. And you weren't on the premises, and you didn't have an individual that could care for the establishment on the premises. These individuals, they're not here tonight. You are. You're the one that's lost the money, not them. And it's unfortunate that, these guys took advantage of you. But you're a savvy businessman. That's a prominent location in Lowell. It's your responsibility to make sure that establishment is run legally. Relative to the complaint, there were different counts that were brought forward. The first one was exceeding the occupancy limit established by the local building inspector in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 148, Section 34A. After hearing the evidence, I would find a violation.
I'll second.
Permitting a blocked or impeded ingress or egress in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 148, Section 34A. I would find a violation of that.
I'll second.
The failure to properly display a license to sell alcoholic beverages in violation of 204 CMR 201. I would find a violation of that.
Second.
Delivering more than 2 drinks to one person at one time in violation of 204 CMR 403, subsection 1, subsection B. Hearing all the evidence, there was no testimony to that, so I would not be inclined to find a violation as to that count. Selling or delivering alcohol beverage to a person under the age of 21 years of age in violation of General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 34. There was no direct testimony as to that. However, the testimony of the officers that there were many patrons under the age of 21 in the establishment. Also, the testimony of the officer that went to the hospital and talked to the individual. I know he didn't get his ID, but you know, I think he was certain as to his age, and he said he was under the age of 21, so I would find enough evidence to have a violation there. Delivering alcoholic beverages to intoxicate a person in violation of Chapter 138, Section 69, 8 counts. Again, I think when the officers arrived, their duty at that time was to quell the disturbance, and they didn't see any delivering of alcoholic beverages to an intoxicated person, so I would not find a violation there. And then finally, violation of 204 CMR 2052, no licensee for the sale of alcoholic beverages shall permit any disorder, disturbance, or illegality of any kind to take place in or on the licensed premises. The licensee shall be responsible therefore, whether present or not. I would find a violation that there was an illegality, and that is exceeding the number of people in the establishment, blocking the means of ingress and egress, et cetera.
Second.
So after hearing all of the evidence and finding the violations, I would recommend that we suspend the license for 90 days, contingent upon the reopening, to be served when the license, or when the establishment can be reopened, meaning they have all the proper health department, building code, et cetera. And that after the expiration of 90 days, the hours of operation be rolled back to 11 p.m. Heretofore. And that relative to the entertainment license, that they only be permitted live music and radio, which I guess would be considered the jukebox, but the DJ would be taken out of the license.
And obviously, I concur with Commissioner Occasion with respect to exceeding the occupancy limit. I think that was clear. I think that there's clear violation with respect to the blocked means of egress, and I think that's actually the most serious. You've heard reference to the station nightclub fire. This was the perfect disaster waiting to happen. We're lucky that nobody died. I know that if Chairman Bayless were present, he probably would have stopped the hearing after we had established that and simply gone right into the sentencing phase. It's a very serious and extremely dangerous situation. Look, I mean, I understand that customers can get into a fight in your establishment, and I understand that that doesn't mean that you're allowing them to fight. I understand that things can get out of hand, and I'm going to say that realistically, you're fortunate that Lieutenant Dowling was across the street and Officer Bowler and Asamoah were driving up just as this thing was starting to happen. You're fortunate that they were able to get there and respond so quickly, because from the description of the scene, I think it's highly likely that had there not been the immediate intervention by the Lowell Police Department, that somebody could have been very seriously hurt or killed. I think there was some testimony with respect to at least one person who was laying on the ground and another person who was throwing a chair. So bearing that in mind, we were fortunate that there were police nearby. They were fortunate they were on hand. We were fortunate that we had a good downtown presence that was able to respond quickly. And I'm not going to sit here and say that you're responsible for somebody committing a crime on your premises. What I'm most concerned about, though, was the fact that there were probably a lot of people in there who were not committing a crime who couldn't get out because the doors were blocked. 2 out of 3 means of egress were impeded. And more importantly, this is a situation where, from the description, the lights were just coming on. Okay. Look, this is not the first time we have had in the city of Lowell an establishment that, for whatever reason, has turned to some of these less than savory promoters. You don't necessarily know who they are, but let's be honest. If they're approaching you to use your licensed establishment, it's because there's something in their background that prevents them from getting a license. All right, we still have licenses available in the city of Lowell, so ask yourself why they're not running their own nightclubs. All right, it's probably for a good reason. We've seen this incident before. I think we saw something similar just a few years ago at Cafe Europa. We saw brawls going on in the parking lots. We saw large crowds exiting. We saw mixed crowds of 18 plus and some of the problems that were going on there. We tried to make it very clear at that time that it's not what we want to see, that there's a responsibility for the management to clean that up, and we took steps then to, I want to say, correct the situation. Now, I'm cognizant of the fact that you have been closed now for the last 2 months. And I'll be honest, if we were just in here on a fight that turned into a brawl, I would probably be inclined to say, time served. But it was a fight that turned into a brawl that escalated because people couldn't exit the premises. Nobody could get out while everything was going on. And yes, I'm sympathetic that you were taken advantage of by, less than savory types. But, this is not the first time they were running this establishment as a club. We had the testimony from Lieutenant Dowling that he had noticed the change and had seen the signs out starting in December. So this was going on for at least 2 full months, December and January, or even, if not 2 full months, at least 1 full month of January and some odd weeks. But the bottom line is, it had been going on, and if you've been unaware of it for that many weeks, that's a very absentee type of approach, which just can't happen. In light of what has been an otherwise very good record, and I'm considering that, you've been open for about 7 years or so without an incident, I'm still going to second a 90-day suspension, but I'm not going to condition it upon running from and after some other board's determination. I think we make our determination, and the other boards can make their determinations respectively. I'm not going to condition what I would otherwise recommend based on waiting on them. I do find that there was a violation with respect to the limit, with respect to the means of egress, with respect to the failing to display the alcoholic beverages. I do recall from some of the published ABCC decisions that relying upon the totem pole hearsay was insufficient as to establish age or with respect to patrons. So I'm not going to concur in that. I do find that there is a violation with respect to permitting an illegality. In this case, even though you weren't present, it's very specific that you're responsible for what happens on the premises, whether you're present or not, and that would be the blocked means of egress. In and of itself, I think the board would be showing you leniency to go with a 90-day suspension starting today. In and of itself, that could be grounds for revocation of a license, which would ban the establishment from having, or ban that premise from having a license for the balance of the year. I think it's only the fact that you've had such a good record for the last, number of years that I would concur with 90 days starting today.
So, all right, we'll have to make a motion to that effect, but
Okay.
The establishment's not open right now. So we're gonna suspend the license, and if they do nothing to, well, I guess my concern is that they won't do anything to the establishment, and then they'll just open up after 90 days. Where it doesn't seem like that's if they can't open up and we're suspending it, it doesn't seem like it's a penalty to me, or a disciplinary decision.
Yeah. My concern is if they were to go ahead and fix everything today and be cleared to open, I mean, I'm not going to sit around and wait for the Board of Health to make their decisions. They can't open until the Board of Health says they're clear to serve food again. If they were to get everything repaired tomorrow, they'd still be within the 90 days. If they want to wait to do that until the 90 days are up, it's still a 3-month suspension that's imposed by us. With respect to what the timing decision is for when they want to comply with the other boards, that's their decision. It may also affect their decisions with respect to whether or not they wish to file an appeal on this decision. So, in short, the other boards have had sufficient time to act or not act. So I'm not going to wait for them to act.
And how about the rollback of hours?
I concur with the rollback of hours. I think that, and the issue with respect to the taking away DJ privileges. If your business model is a restaurant that occasionally has birthday parties, I think you can do that without having DJs. All right, well, so what I'll do is I think I understand what you're saying. What I'll do is I'll make a motion to modify. Or let me just clear up. I'll make a motion to suspend the license for a period of 90 days beginning today. I'll make a motion to reduce the hours to 11 o'clock starting today, and remaining in effect until such time as we vote to increase the hours. And I will make a motion to modify the entertainment license, to restore the previously suspended entertainment license with the modification that there be no DJ, that it be live music, radio, jukebox. And I will caveat it with, in the event that there is a transfer of the license pending, the board reserves the right to revisit the suspension.
All licenses.
We reserve the right to revisit this in the event that there is a sale or transfer.
Okay, thank you.
Did I cover everything?
That was my concern, is that if there's a transfer,
I mean, I
it would be
don't,
difficult to transfer with the suspension, and that's a prime location in the city, and if Mr. Ayub doesn't reopen,
It wants to transfer that
he
you...
wants to transfer the license, we don't want that suspension hanging over the transfer, we want
Thank you.
another
Okay.
establishment to be able to go in there. That was my concern.
That comes back before the board in the event a new owner wants to apply.
in the event that any transfer of the license comes
Yeah.
up, we will revisit it at the same time.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to second the motion, although I am hesitant relative to, I liked my wording better with the,
I just don't want to wait to
but
have an
it's
unspecified date.
9:30, so I'll second the motion.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor, say yes.
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 Will you be writing a written decision, or is that how you guys work?
Yes, you will get a written notification from the chairman, from the secretary. He should be the chairman, he's been here longer. But from Mr. Nguyen for within a few days. So, probably, I would guess, the beginning of next week sometime.
Meeting adjourned?
Yeah, we'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right, second. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.